Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome back to day 150 of the news.
And I would like to welcome everyone back to day 150 of the war in Ukraine. This is the final day in month 5, and tomorrow on day 151, on Sunday, will be the very first day of the 6th month of the war. It is incredible to think that Ukraine has made it this far, and it's incredible to think that we have been watching it every single day since it's been happening, the entirety of the Lee Spring Army. And it's honestly impressive to me to think that that has been the case. Day in, day out, we have watched the war develop every single moment of it. And we will be here to cover it until the very end. And of course, not only that, but we have gotten some more big news. I didn't put any markers down in this area today, but we did get some more big news of developments that we now can confirm. But before we get to any of that, I would like to make a couple of quick little mentions. First, our merchandise store is having a limited edition run on Lee Spring Army and Coffee Fund merch. If you want to find these merchandise store, I said this like I was speaking Ukrainian. But anyways, you can go to the stream, which is right here. Look at that. You can click on the stream that we now will click mute for the stream. We scroll down here, and you have the description for the night. It actually tells you exactly what we're going to be covering, and it also has a couple of links. The first one is the merchandise store. The second one will take you to United 24, where you can support Ukraine directly to the Ukrainian government. The third one is a link to our Discord servers, which can take you there through an invite, which will bring you into the Lee Spring Army community. And then the fourth one is the link to the map, which if you click on, will actually take you right to the exact same map I'm using on stream, just in case if y'all didn't know. But the one we're talking about is this one. If you click on it, you can get on here and you can take a look at our limited edition merch, which are the Lee Spring Army t-shirt and hoodie, and also the Coffee Fund t-shirt, hoodie, and sticker. These are only going to be available for about the next hour and 50 minutes at this point. And so if you haven't already gotten yours and you are wanting some, make sure to get it right now because time is in fact running out. It helps to support this channel and you'll get something pretty cool out of it. And so with that, now that we've covered this little bit of information, I also have to give a little bit of an aside, and I thought I would say something about this in advance just in case if anyone's noticing. Y'all may notice that I'm not going to be hitting as high vocally in my range as I usually do tonight. That is because after my back problem kind of subsided in the middle of the day today, now something is happening with one of the muscles in my neck, and if I fluctuate my voice too high, it feels like it snaps something in there and it hurts pretty bad. So if you're thinking I sound a little bit down tonight, I'm definitely not. I'm just trying to make sure that I don't snap something in my neck and hurt myself in the middle of the stream. So with all of that out of the way, make sure to go check out that merch, by the way, once more. We're now going to get into the schedule of tonight's news. And we're going to be starting off with maybe one of the most important things that we've heard, and it also shows the intent the Russians have on being honest. And that will be the news in Odessa. After we cover the news in Odessa, we'll then be moving into the Kherson area and covering the two pieces of news we've gotten here as well, along with all of the, I guess you could say, suppositions that we've gotten, although we haven't been able to back them up with picture or video evidence. But now the story seems to be pretty clear and everyone's agreeing on a certain set of a story. So after we cover these bits of news, we'll then be moving up into the Sumy area and covering the news there as well. After we cover that news, we're then going to move down to our location unknowns, but before we get to the location unknowns, we'll be taking a quick pause to answer 3 questions from the chat. After we answer those 3 questions, we'll then move into the location unknowns and the Kharkiv, Belgorod, and also Izyum and Volnovakha area. After we cover all of that news, we'll then be moving on into the Luhansk and Donetsk area, as well as the remainder of the southern front, which has one bit of news right here. But of course, before we get to all of that news, we'll be taking another pause to answer another 3 questions from the chat, and after we answer those 3 questions, we'll then be covering the remainder of the news for the night, which of course is in Luhansk, Donetsk, and one piece in the southern front. After we do all of that, we'll then be moving into Kyiv to cover the speech from President Zelenskyy. So, with all that in mind, we do have a pretty interesting night of news. We don't actually have any real international news to speak from. The Belgorod news kind of extends as war news from Ukraine. And so without further ado, let's go to probably some of the most important news that we've gotten today outside of Kherson, which has shown that the Russians have no intent on carrying through with anything they agree upon. Y'all may remember that the major news last night was that the Russians, the Ukrainians, and the Turks had made a joint agreement that Ukrainian grain would continue to flow out of the country. And in that agreement, it was stated that ships would be allowed to enter Ukrainian ports like Mykolaiv and Odessa, load the grain, and then ship it out overseas to all of the countries that, of course, usually got imported Ukrainian grains. Not long after that agreement was made in Istanbul, Turkey, Russian cruise missiles slammed directly into the port infrastructure in Odessa, severely crippling it. We actually have multiple videos and clips showing that right here. And so let's watch the first one. Here we can actually see Ukrainian air defense systems in the city of Odessa area shooting down 2 of the Russian missiles before they were able to hit. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be the case for all missiles, as we can see right there. Some of them did, of course, manage to land and hit their targets within the port. There we can see the second missile destroyed. With that is the end of this video, and we're now going to move on to the next one, which actually shows a little bit more detail of the port explosion. Let's see if it'll load. There we go. This one will actually show the explosions within the port itself. And so here's the video. Now, an important thing to notice, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is that the Russians made an agreement just hours before this attack that international ships would be allowed into Ukrainian ports to pick up the grain and then ship them overseas. And this attack did not attack the city of Odessa, it attacked the port of Odessa, the actual location where these ships would be loaded with grains. For this reason, this has to be a deliberate attack. There is no reason that, coincidentally, after an agreement like that was reached, the missiles would then accidentally just glide their way into the port instead of the city and hit there. This is showing that this is something deliberate by the Russians, showing that they won't even respect the agreements they make with the Ukrainians or the Turks or anyone in the world for that matter, and it's all just for show to try and garner themselves some sympathy on the major news headlines. It's really sickening to see, honestly. It's hypocritical of the Russians to do, and it shows us incredibly well what kind of intent the Russians really have, which is not to the advantage or the interests of anyone. Now, I was just taking a pause here because I was trying to think, what reasons would the Russians have to do this rather than stopping this from going through? One reason could be is that they're going to try and say, or throw the blame on the Ukrainians and maybe try and create this famine, this global famine, and ensure that grains cannot be shipped out and destroy the port infrastructure beforehand, so that way they can try and throw the blame on the Ukrainians for not having ports that are capable enough to be able to ship out this grain. This may be kind of like a way for the Russians to construct an image where the Ukrainians would be at fault for a famine instead of them, although what we're seeing right now makes it clearly their fault. Finally, the last bit of news we've gotten from the area of Odessa shows the exact same thing from a different angle. It actually shows the missiles slamming into the port from a distance here in this picture. Now, you can hardly see it. This was taken from the balcony of an apartment building, but you can see the explosion over there right onto the port. Based off of where this picture was taken, if we go to Google Maps and pull up Odessa real quick, which we'll pull up right here, we will throw in the satellite image. So you can see that this picture looks like it was taken from somewhere over here where my mouse cursor is. And it's looking across this inlet, I guess you could call it. We'll call it an inlet for these purposes. You can see that's looking across, and the only thing across from that area is the actual port itself, which we can see right here. And there's no way you can make this stuff up. And here's the exact... Let me make sure. I want to make sure that we're getting this right. From the other video earlier... Here's the exact grain towers they looked at. Here's where the ships can dock, the cranes as well. And we can see that there's a lot of aggregate materials that make its way out of this port. For example, here, it appears that it's coal, gravel, probably stuff like that, maybe bauxite as well. Further down, this may be grains. We can also see containers as well. So it seems like a lot of aggregate materials, of course, is traveling through this port, and we can see the Russians deliberately trying to attack Ukraine's ability to transport this stuff out of the country and ensure that this agreement falls apart before it can even take off. Also, right here we can see the Ukrainian frigate, the only one they had entering into this war at port. We know that afterwards it was deliberately scuttled by the Ukrainians within the first few weeks of the war because they were scared that it would fall into Russian hands. Some of that, of course, unfortunate news to see, and I hope that the Russians do pay for their deception and their lies that they're constantly trying to write and depict, although they're clearly see-through. This is almost something you expect a cartoon villain to do. Well, we're now going to be moving out of the city of Odessa, and we're now going to be moving further to the east in the Kherson area. We've seen a couple of interesting sites today, and I believe... Okay, I was making sure that we had those markers correct. We actually have a very interesting site that is kind of showing that the Ukrainians do have overarching plans in this area that they're most likely going to be conducting very soon. What I'm talking about is a counterattack. We've already seen that they destroyed, well, almost destroyed one of the spans of the Antonovsky Bridge, which is the only bridge in the Kherson area that crosses over the Dnieper River. We haven't only seen that, it appears that the Ukrainians also conducted an attack on a bridge near the town of Orlivka over the Inhalets River, and we can actually see how precise Ukrainian artillery can actually get. And let me show you all this video, as well as the Google Maps images that this person compiled. We don't know who exactly made this video, but I do have to say they did an incredible job depicting how accurate Ukrainian artillery really is. Well, you see here the layout of the bridge on Google Maps with the red circles. These red circles depict the exact spots where these artillery shells punctured the tarmac on top of the bridge. And as you'll see here in this video, of course, backing this up with video proof, you can see that these shells were placed in the center of every single span of the bridge for about 6 spans. Perfectly spaced. Now, who has a question about how accurate Ukrainian artillery really is? We didn't even see any ranging shots or shots that were off. Every single one of them was like a hole put into a cloth by a sewing machine. It was perfect. The distancing was identical. It was right dead center in each span. This is something that you would see in, say, a movie where you're going up against an incredibly high-tech force, and the Ukrainians are actually putting this into reality. It's not just something that you're being told or having a little bit of an exaggeration to. The Ukrainian artillery is so accurate they can shoot a tick off of a dog. They literally put these equally distanced on the bridge and pretty much compromised 6 entire spans on it. An impressive feat by the Ukrainian artillery, and it does show that it is no lie, no exaggeration, or no myth that Ukrainian artillery can be dead on accurate. This is a perfect example of that, and it also shows that they are destroying every single bridge crossing that the Russians currently occupy. So, if we look through the rest of their territory, there only looks like there's about 2 bridges left, one near Novokary and also one near Milove. Now, I don't feel afraid giving out that kind of information because there's not really much the Russians can do rather than pray that the Ukrainian artillery doesn't hit the bridge, but we've seen that the Ukrainian artillery will hit anything, and it can hit exactly onto what it wants. I bet you that they can actually kind of have a little bit of leeway into what they're hitting on a tank, whether it be the turret, the engine bay, or the front glacis, considering how accurate that was. But with that, that's the end of that little clip, and it is showing us that Ukrainian artillery is in action in this area, and it's having very strategic plans involved, and it seems like this has been heavily planned out. And so I'm assuming that what we're about to see in the coming days or weeks is about to be even more thoroughly planned out. Moving on up towards the area of Davydiv Brid, we've also seen some more instances of action occurring here, where we've seen the M777s are firing shells that have had a donation attached. Each of these shells you can donate to have something that you want written onto it. And so we're going to look at this video, and we're going to see what's been written onto these shells. When you see the M777 firing, and right here, when you see Rusan in Unt Domus. I don't know what that means specifically, but someone did donate to have that message written onto the shell. We now see them, of course, loading the piece, getting the next one ready. Wait a minute, wait. Oh, come on. Let me pause it. Negative Ghost Rider. Someone paid to have negative Ghost Rider put on the shell. Someone else put the pattern something. The pattern is full. Interesting. So now they're loading this shell in with a couple of messages on there. And we actually have a link to the website itself. It's signmyrocket.com. Now, I wonder how much this actually costs. So we're going to pull this up. Signmyrocket.com. Send your message to the Russian invaders. Oh, we could choose a weapon as well. Look at this. Let's see. You have the chance to kill orcs with your text written on an artillery shell that will be fired at Russian soldiers. You will receive a photo of your signed shell or a video of it being fired. You can even sign a T-72 tank. Matthew, I think I'm having an idea here.
That is pretty cool, I have to admit.
This is pretty cool. And I think that all of y'all might be getting an idea of what we might do. So, let's just pick this. $3,000.
Whoa.
Yikes. 150 for a 155 millimeter shell, though. Payment method. Okay. So they got PayPal, Bitcoin, Ethereum, credit card. We can write something. What if we wrote Leaf Spring Army? What if we wrote Leaf Spring Army onto a shell that was fired at the Russians? We might make that as an actual video on its own, a standalone video, because that would be incredibly cool. So, now that we know that this actually exists, and we actually see the messages being written onto stuff, it would be really cool, actually, if we could get Leaf Spring Army put onto the barrel of a T-72. Now, that would be pretty crazy that there would be a tank rolling around out there on the front lines that represents the entirety of the Leaf Spring Army. We will think about this. It'll most likely be put onto a 155 millimeter shell, but still incredibly impressive nonetheless. And this is something that I actually didn't look into until this very moment, so I'm pretty excited about this. But since we are, of course, covering the news, we can't sit here and oogle about this for too long. But if y'all have any ideas and would like to support the Ukrainians and also get a little message written onto something, y'all can also go to this website as well and put in a little message. Let's see what else we got. 152 is only $100. 203 is $250. The tank is 3,000. Video is 1,000. And then drone grenade. Oh, man, a drone grenade. We could actually watch a Russian tank get destroyed with Leaf Spring Army written onto it. Anyways, we're going to move on. And I see a lot of people saying do it. So we will definitely do it. But with that, we're now going to move on to the next bit of news after seeing that video, which has given us a lot of ideas. And I bet it's given you all a lot of ideas as well. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from the Kherson area. But before we do, we actually have to talk about what's been going on near Vysokopillya. We got some information the other day that apparently Vysokopillya had not been encircled. Now we're getting information today that is in the process of being encircled. And it seems like the story has now started to align over multiple news agencies. And of course, take that with a grain of salt, because news agencies don't really get a lot right, much like we saw. They said it was encircled, and then they came out and said that was wrong. That was 100% wrong. So take it with a grain of salt whenever they say anything. But we do know that the Ukrainians have taken the villages of Potomkin and also Olchin. Hopefully I'm pronouncing those correctly. And so Vysokopillya is kind of caught in the middle. And you see that both of these villages are further south of Vysokopillya, and so it is possible that the Russians may be encircled here, considering that there really is no road rather than this small country road as a route of retreat. So with this in mind, I think we're probably going to see about an entire BTG, 800 soldiers, get encircled in this area within some time. We've already seen them get pushed out of Olhin and Potemkin, so hopefully we'll see something like that soon. Of course, great news, and it is showing that the Ukrainians are easily able to push the Russians back whenever they put their mind to it. Sorry for the stutter there. But with that, we're now going to be moving out of the Kherson area with some pretty interesting news at that. And with that, we're now going to be moving on up towards the Sumy area, where we also have some additional news as well. Now, the Ukrainians largely don't fire onto Russian military assets within Russia. Assets is kind of a cheesy word, to be honest. We'll call them soldiers. They don't really fire onto Russian soldiers or Russian personnel of any kind in Russia, unless if it's some kind of an ammunition depot, and usually that's been pretty rare recently. So with that, what I'm about to show y'all is actually pretty rare. In fact, it's incredibly rare. We hardly ever see anything like this. But we did see in the town of Tetkino today that the Ukrainians fired at a border guard installation, and of course, like the Ukrainian artillery usually does, every single shell landed within the confines of the border guard's compound. And so with that, here's the video with some nice music over it. We can see the audio is still on. We can see the artillery landing in the compound. One landed just in front of what appears to be a barrack. We've also seen some land within a little fenced area on the side. I'm not sure if that's like an electrical substation or something. But notice how all of the artillery shells are landing within the compound. None of them are landing in the surrounding houses or the roads. They're all landing within the compound itself. They're hitting a lot of stuff around there, I gotta say. Now, they haven't hit the barracks building directly, but they keep on hitting a whole bunch of stuff in the middle of the square. We don't see them hitting any vehicles. Well, that may be a vehicle. We've seen them hit what appears to be an electrical substation on the side, and pretty much all around the buildings, but not directly onto them. An interesting choice that they've made. I don't know why they did that, but still, it's great to see that they are hitting border guard compounds across the border, and they are showing the Russians that they will not be safe, even if they are not fighting in that area of the front. With that, we are now going to be moving on to our next bit of news. Not a lot to cover there, but we're now going to be moving down into the location unknown news. But of course, before we do, I would like to ask y'all to do something. If y'all would, please hit the thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and tell everyone about this. Now that we've seen that there's actually a way to have inscriptions written onto shells, tanks, and whatnot, I think it would be really cool if we had the Lee Spring Army put onto a vehicle or a shell. Honestly, I think it would be cool to do a vehicle, so that way we can kind of have it emblazoned forever in memory as long as the war went on, and there would actually be a tank out there with the inscription Lee Spring Army on it. But of course, we're going to wait and see about that. We'll try and come up with something in the future about it, but make sure to hit that like button and also comment. And comment often and make sure that it's actual discussions, because one thing that would help us out a lot with doing this and also making it a little bit more public is if everyone helps to boost this channel. There's a lot of ways you can do that, but the best way to do it is to slam that like button and also tell your friends about this stream, so that way they too will watch it, and then we can hopefully get a load of support for the Lee Spring Army, and maybe we can get Lee Spring Army put on more than just one tank. Maybe we can have like Lee Spring Army 1, Lee Spring Army 2, and so on. And so with that, we are now going to move towards the location unknown news, but before we do, of course, once again, we're going to answer 3 questions from the chat, and after we answer those 3 questions, we're then going to move on into the location unknowns.
All right, and it is now time for the first question segment, but before we get to it, I actually need to take just a moment here to try to organize a spreadsheet. They've been rolling in like crazy. It looks like the sign a missile idea is really popular. So, now that it is all organized, up first we have a $50 super chat from Gary Robbins, who says, "Hey Enforcer, I respectfully suggest that you consider going into the armed forces after law school, not to make a career out of it, but to gain incredible experience."
Well, thank you so much for the support, Gary, and it has been something that I would like to do, but of course I have to put a little bit of a letdown on that idea. Not that I wouldn't want to, and I think it would be interesting, but the thing is that I have, like I was talking last night, double major scoliosis. And to kind of talk about this medical issue in a little bit more detail, scoliosis you can get into the military with. You have to get a waiver, but you can get in. The problem with my scoliosis, though, is that double major scoliosis is a little bit more on the severe side. And unfortunately, at my age, there's no way I can wear a brace to fix it. It would have to be surgery. And the surgery has a chance of being unsuccessful. And I could end up being paralyzed if it is unsuccessful. So, sadly, I can't really join the military even if I wanted to. they won't even allow me, because I checked on it, to enter with a waiver. Apparently my scoliosis is too severe for that. And so when I went up to a recruiter and asked him, here's my thing, they looked into it and they said there's no way you could enter, even if you were to get a waiver. It's impossible with that kind of degree of scoliosis. So sadly, I wouldn't be able to do it. But I do give a lot of credit to everyone out there who does. It's an important service to the country. And while, of course, it's by and large agreed upon amongst most veterans that it wasn't the funnest thing in the world to do, it was definitely a service to the nation and something to be proud of. And a lot of them say if they were called upon to do it again, they certainly would. And I have to get behind them with that, because that is a very patriotic stance to take. And of course, it is supporting the nation. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, Gary. I know that would be an interesting idea, and it would be invaluable experience to get, but sadly, just due to my own medical limitations, I can't do it. Also, to answer a question, someone actually said, what is scoliosis? Scoliosis, just to pull it up real quick, is a condition of the spine. It's where you have a bit of a genetic deformity, pretty much, that makes your back curve, like you see right here. A normal back, of course, as you can see right here, is perfectly straight, and the spinal discs are, of course, just stacked directly on top of each other. In someone with scoliosis, your spine can actually tilt like this, and on top of that, it will give you the appearance that you're leaning. And I actually got that a lot in high school. A lot of people always ask me, why did I stand and lean? And it wasn't me deliberately leaning. It was my spine inside of my body that made me look like that. So I hope that kind of answers what scoliosis is. Of course, I'm not sitting here acting like, oh, I'm going to raise awareness for scoliosis. It's been around forever. That's, it's just something I have to live with. But I thought I would tell y'all a little bit about that. And whenever the talk of the military comes up, this is kind of what I'm facing, is that I'm facing scoliosis, which kind of bars me from service altogether. And so with that, I hope that answers the question, Gary. And I hate to put a letdown on it, but reality is reality. I hate it as well, but it's a bit of an unfortunate thing I have to live with. And so with that, we're now going to move on to the next question. And thank you once again, Gary, for the massive amount of support and being a longtime member of this Lee Spring Army.
All right, and up next we have a $50 super chat from International Stacker, who says, this is for the Grenade Fund. I have a channel about traveling and finding gold and silver. Did you know that guided misses have silver in them? Stack it to the sky.
And thank you so much for the support. And also, that's really cool to hear that you have a channel, that a travel channel that looks into gold and silver.
I think so.
That's really interesting. That's a really interesting combination right there. But also, something that's cool to know is that all computers also have a little bit of gold in them. It's of course I believe it's a great conductor, isn't it, Matthew?
You said gold and silver being a good conductor?
Well, specifically gold. I'm not really sure about silver, but I've heard a lot about gold being in most CPUs and stuff like that because it's a great conductor.
Yes, I believe so.
And so, yes, I did know about that, and I wouldn't doubt that silver would also be within some processors and missiles because it's in a lot of computer components. By and large, my honest opinion on gold is that there's really no worth in it. Rather than it being gold and, having an assigned worth for that, I'm much happier to know it actually has an applicable purpose instead of just being aesthetic and having some kind of a value put onto it. I honestly think that gold was the original Bitcoin. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does answer your question. And it's, of course, wonderful to get support to continue running this channel, because without it, we wouldn't be able to. And so with that, I hope that does answer your question. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, I see a lot of people are very much in favor of the writing a name on the side of the missile idea. So what I'm going to do in a minute is put a poll up. And Enforcer, would you be okay with potentially doing that maybe on stream tomorrow during the fundraiser at some point?
Maybe. We would have to see how to do that, because the problem is that I would have to input card information and stuff like that on the screen. So I'm not really sure if we would be able to show them that part on stream. But I'm honestly thinking that we may make that a YouTube video on its own. Where we do everything in the background instead of on stream, so that way we can kind of hide the monetary information and stuff like that about our card number and all of that, because we wouldn't be able to do that live.
All right, and with that being said, we are moving on to our next super chat, which is a $50 donation from Enforcer for President, who says, here's a little help towards something to send to Russian army via LSA.
And thank you so much for the support. And I've seen a lot of support. Actually, can we stop that poll real quick? We'll actually cover that one right here in a second before we stop it. But let's stop that poll and run a brand new one about what we're going to put a message on. Because if we're going to put a message on something, I would like everyone to be in consensus about what it will be. So with that, we'll go over that poll here in a second. But I thank you so much for the support. And we will certainly look into having something put on a shell, a tank, or whatnot to have on the front lines. Honestly, it would blow me away if we actually were able to put Lee Spring Army on a tank, like a T-72, and that T-72 went on to obliterate some Russians. I don't know about y'all, but that would be probably the coolest one. That is, of course, the most expensive one, though. So, you know, we gotta, of course, consider our limitations. But we could see about that. We can, you know, we can have a T-72 out there doing the bidding of the whole LSA. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment, and I thank you once again for the support. And before we move out of this question segment, we're actually going to move on into talking about our polls, so that way we can take this one down and then put up a new one. And so, if you would like to take it away, Matthew, and explain what the poll was about and the results, go right ahead.
All right, so the question was, were you surprised that the Russians did not honor the agreement with the Ukrainians? And very obviously, 91% of you said not surprised in the slightest. And I would have to agree with you. We know that the Russian government is very dishonest, including Putler. So I'm not surprised by that result as well. And it looks like 7% said that I wasn't sure what to expect, and 3% said I was baffled by it and very surprised.
I would have to say that the polls, I don't know about you, Matthew, but the polls represent exactly what I was thinking. It wasn't really surprising to me to see that they did something like that. This is always in the Russian textbook of being underhanded and doing one, while saying one thing while doing another, because they've been doing this the entire war. They've been sitting there saying, we're going to try and liberate the Ukrainians from their oppressors, and in the meantime, attacking them directly with missiles, rockets, and bombs. And then whenever they're in an occupied area, they tie up Ukrainians and torture them, execute them, and just put them through hell on earth. And so I wasn't really surprised to see that they were saying one thing and doing another, specifically in this instance, because this is the largest thing that's ever happened in the world, and it has the most implications for the Russians, considering that Ukrainian grain will be able to travel, and there will be no crisis that they may be able to capitalize on and take advantage of. So I wasn't surprised at all, and I'm glad that a lot of people were not surprised, because I certainly was not. When I heard the news, I was like, well, that would be something I would expect. And so with that, I hope that does address the poll, and if you would like to add a little bit to it, Matthew, I think a lot of people would like to hear it.
I think you covered it pretty good, Enforcer, but real quick, for some reason I cannot close that poll. If you could go into your dashboard and close that real quick.
Sure. And with that, we're going to run a new poll. And real quick, we're actually going to revisit this video. Make sure, everyone, by the way, just I'm not trying to say this a lot, but make sure to hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed, and also make sure to hit the like button. That's probably the most important one out of the two, because if you hit the like button, this will be promoted to more people. More people can come on here, and maybe we can start to make this Lee Spring Army idea a bit of a more known thing. Maybe we can get a lot of people in on it, and maybe we can get some large supporters out there of our channel. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know the ones we're talking about. Maybe to have a couple of other tanks with Lee Spring Army on them, or shells. We're not really sure what. But real quick, we're going to go to signmyrocket.com. And we can see that it's legit, because this is no scam. They're actually putting it on shells here in this video, and we can see them firing it. Very decent advertising at that. And so, let's see. Let's look through here. So we can actually see a couple of them here. This one's, well, we won't say that one on stream, but you can read that, Matthew. This one's a GAY bomb. This one says T90 go boom. And the 203mm, which would be shot by a peon, says fighting fascism is a full-time job, Shacks. Wow, I mean, like, there's no lie about this. They're actually doing this. Dropping a signed VOG. Let's look at this video real quick. Whoa, wait a minute, did you see the message on that?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Oh my god. Jeez. 1 second, let's get rid of that bot real quick. Sure, they'd say, I swear I'm not a bot. But when you see them here showing on the message, now they're attaching it to a DJI Mavic. Let's see them drop the bomblet. So now they're flying over some Russians. They've now picked a place to drop this bomblet. And the Russians who are about to have this dropped on them are probably feeling absolutely disgraced if they knew the message that was on that bomblet right now. There goes the bomblet. We can actually see the inscription on it, so it's the exact same one. And it fell, and it looks like it wounded a guy. So it's doing its job, I guess you could say. It's certainly doing its job. And someone actually put a crazy inscription on it. Now let's check out. I want to see the actual tank. It's a unique offer. Sign your own tank. We can see right here a little bit of it. It says a couple of inscriptions on the barrel. Let's see.
And Enforcer, I'd be curious to know who exactly runs the site. If you'd like to click on the Who We Are tab real quick. I see a lot of viewers asking who exactly gets the money from this.
Who We Are, NGO, Centers of Assistance to the Army, Veterans, and Their Families, is a non-governmental, non-profit organization that has been operating since 2014 and focuses on helping units of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the Territorial Defense, the Volunteer Forces in the struggle for the nation. And so that is who it is. It's apparently the Centers of Assistance to the Army, Veterans, and Their Families. Let's actually pull them up real quick to make sure to be as thorough as possible. Center of Assistance. Let's see. To the Army. Veterans. And their families. Let's see. We'll just put this in. We'll just copy and paste it so that way we can get the direct translation, I guess you could call it. Now I gotta go through and do... Okay. Alright, so let's pull this up. Non-profit. Let's see, this is an American group. What's the name of the charity? I think they don't have an American URL. I don't know if we're pulling up exclusively American URLs, but everything we're looking at is an American nonprofit for a veteran organization. So, let's go to this link here. It takes us to Facebook. Wait a minute. Hang on. I had to make sure there that we weren't going to be thrown onto my account. So apparently we have to be logged in to see the page. But we can see that there are 1,700 people following this page. And a couple of other things. But sadly, I don't have a Facebook account. Don't really look into that too much. But as far as we can tell, especially with the messages and the inscriptions that have actually been written, it looks like this is a legitimate deal. And let's look at some of these more messages. Natalka says, "Death to Russian scum with love from Amsterdam. Cure for Putin's ligma."
Oh my goodness. Why did someone have to do that?
Oh my gosh. Let's see what the next one... We can't read that one. That one looks like a T-72 shell, or at least it's on a T-72. This next one says, AL 2071X win. I don't know what that means. Happy Father's Day, Thomas. The Russian just got obliterated by a Father's Day wish. GG, sorry for the gun kill. Wow, there's some crazy ones. Do they have a photo album? Of all of these? Like, it's got to be somewhere, right? Gallery. This is the... If you have any questions, will be assigned. We are an official NGO. Register your donation, public offer, independent reporter. Let's look at this. Checking your browser. Please do that. Let's see. Interesting. So we actually do have some information here. They're apparently based in the Cherkasy area. So it appears that according to this website, they are legitimate. So we're kind of getting a little bit more verification as we go. But still, this is wild and also incredibly interesting. And so if we could, Matthew, could you throw up a poll? And we'll go back to the website for the actual purpose we were there for. SciMyRocket.com. Let's go here. And so here are our options, and this is what we're going to put in the poll. If we were to write an inscription, what will it be on? And here will be our 4 options: a 152 millimeter, a 155 millimeter, a 203 millimeter, or a T-72 tank. And so once we get all of those options, just let me know and throw up that poll, and we're going to see what everyone wants, because what everyone wants, we'll see if it's possible for everyone to get. I'm just letting y'all know, though, with the T-72, we might need a little bit of help with that one. Just saying, it's as you can see right there, it's a little pricey. But the 203, the 155, the 152, we could do those just off of a vote. So we're now going to see what everyone votes for, and with that, we are now going to move out of the question segment and let that poll build up some information. And if you have thrown in a question tonight through a super chat, do not worry, we will address every single one of them by the end of the night. My throat, my neck almost snapped right there when I did that. But we will answer all of them by the end of the night, and we will also answer as many live chat questions as we can. But for now, we're now going to be moving on from the Sumy area and into our location unknowns, the Kharkiv Belgorod news, as well as the Volnovakha and Izyum news as well. And before we move on, I just want to say again, because I'm noticing that it actually does a lot of good to harass people to hit the like button. If y'all would like to hit that like button again, it does promote this stream to more people and allows more people to watch this, more people to get behind it, and we can maybe make the Lee Spring Army thing here come to fruition, or at least get a lot of attention to it. With that, we're now going to be moving into the location unknowns. And starting off our day incredibly well, we saw the Ukrainians destroy a BMP, maybe with a shell that has some inscriptions written on it. But we can see here, they're looking at it on a laptop. We see one of the artillery shells land in the field. When you see the crew of this BMP, it appears that all 3 of them are hanging around the front. Wait a minute. Matthew, I don't know if you noticed this as well, but look at this. It's like a vaudeville routine down there. It's like they're having a little argument. And they're like, we need to leave. They're like, that shell landed right near us. So this guy starts running off, and then he does a 180 and starts running back because they're like, no, come back. We're going to try and get out of here in the BMP. So they start climbing onto the BMP, getting inside of the compartments. When you see the smoke of the last shell flowing over them now. Oh! Oh my god! Daddy, they broke the man's back.
Oh my god.
The driver panics. Apparently the driver and the commander must have panicked, and the commander must have given the order to drive. The gunner had not gotten into the turret hatch yet, or had even grabbed onto it, and so the BMP driver floors the BMP and flings the gunner off the back straight onto his tailbone and his spine. Oh my lord. Now they've realized, wait, we've left the gunner! And so I bet you they're now going to back up and run over him. Actually, they've stopped, and now they're waiting for the guy who probably has broken spinal discs to catch up to the BMP and then hop back onto it. But now they're even leaving him behind at that!
Сука, блядь, не попав.
А це вже на опереження взяли якраз.
Да, блядь.
Якраз би він туди поїхав, якраз би в нього залетіло.
That's the end of the video, but a pretty funny one at that. And we can see that the crew absolutely went into freakout mode. Now, the title was not 100% correct. I think when I was labeling this, I was thinking of something else, another video that we're going to watch. But this is still high-class entertainment. Never before do you see crews so freaked out that they'll actually leave their own people behind, throw them off of tanks and get them injured, probably, trying to get out of there, until you run into the Russians. And they are definitely the group to do something like that. And so with that, nice video to see. Great to start off the location unknowns like this. And we're now going to move on to the next bit, where we can see an MTLB being hit by a VOG grenade. And here's the clip. We can see the MTLB sitting right here. We can see a lot of the hatches are open or ajar, which lets us know that the crew may have already bailed. And we can now see the VOG landing right on top of the MTLB, but we really can't note any kind of puncturing of the hull or the armor. It looks like it did cause a little bit of a light gray area on top, but we don't see any shrapnel punctures or any kind of fires coming from inside the MTLB. So by and large, I think that may have been an unlucky shot that didn't really do anything to the APC. Still interesting to see that the Ukrainians are trying to make those lucky shots every once in a while with these VOGs. If it had gone through a hatch, it most likely would have caught the tank on fire, but unfortunately, it was close, but no cigar. With that, we're now going to be moving on to the next bit of location unknown news, where you can then see a Ukrainian vehicle being slammed. Well, actually, I'm sorry. We saw a Ukrainian vehicle being hit. It wasn't really slammed by a precision-guided strike from the Russians. This is one of the few times on film that we've seen this, and here's the video. When you see the Russian drone looking at the Ukrainian truck, I can't really tell you what that is. It's a very long truck. Wait a minute, hang on. Does that line up? It does. But the munition hit the front of the building. There's a fire going on over here, but the vehicle's right there. The fire isn't even attached to the vehicle. And so, it looks like the truck may have been damaged. That may be the case. But at the same time, I don't think... Because if you look at it again, we're going to have to look at this a second time. This bomb clearly hits the other side of the building. And it does look like it causes a small fire there. But we don't see any distinctive black smoke coming from the vehicle. We see a little smoldering fire right here, but we don't see anything on the truck, which we can still see right there. And if it had been hit or damaged in any way, it most likely would have caught on fire, and we would have seen the shell of the truck burning, not some random area on the ground. And so, by and large, I don't think that this footage is actually showing a Ukrainian loss. It may be showing a damaged vehicle, which may be considered a loss in the end, but we're not seeing that definitive level of evidence to let us know that this vehicle was in fact destroyed. So with that, we're now going to be moving on to the next bit of location unknown news, where we can then see a Ukrainian hitting a BTR as well as soldiers with the artillery. As we can see in this drone footage, there's a BTR down there. There's a Russian BTR-82. We can now see the artillery come in. Now, let's go back and look at this again now that we already saw it. We see the artillery coming in. And we can see what appeared to be the little pixels of soldiers. Couldn't really see them all too well, so I'm not really sure. But we definitely saw an artillery shell land right onto a BTR-82, knocking it out. So with that, that is the end of the little video right here, and it is neat to see that the Ukrainian artillery is still dead on accurate and was able to slam that BTR-82 with a nice, well-placed shot. These kinds of losses will help the Ukrainians to eventually turn the tide of this war and hopefully push the Russians back in time. With that, we're now going to be moving on to the next bit of location unknown news, where we can see a very close call for a Ukrainian soldier. This artillery shell landed within 100 yards, which is close enough that shrapnel could fly out and hit him and possibly wound him. But in this video, he was incredibly fortunate and was able to hit the ground and, as far as we could tell, not take any significant injuries. We see the explosion right there, just about 100 yards away, incredibly loud, and the soldier immediately hit the ground, which is a smart thing to do. We can now see the smoke of the explosion coming over him. And what a close call, but what a lucky break for this Ukrainian soldier who managed to not get hurt whatsoever and just got a little, of course, freaked out by the very close explosion. It's good to see that Ukrainian soldiers are able to make it through these close, but of course imprecise attacks by the Russians, because the Russians, by and large, as far as we can see, are not really well educated or have the ability to land well-placed artillery shots, and so the Ukrainians usually get away unscathed most of the time. With that, we're now going to be moving on to our final bit of Location Unknown news, where we can see that while the Russians are getting dog drunk on vodka in Ukraine, the Ukrainian soldiers in their free time are enjoying sports. And so with that, here's a video of a boxing tournament of the Azov Kyiv. And so this is the Azov Kyiv unit. I don't know specifically where this one is wound up. It may be in the Zaporizhia area, or it may be in the Kharkiv area. But here's the video of them having one of their first boxing bouts.
Мужчини і жінки. Все це було зроблене для вас. Для того, щоб ви завжди лишались воїнами, навіть тоді, коли ви відпочиваєте. На центр. І для того, щоб ви розуміли, що навіть коли закінчиться ця їбана війна, блядь, є в чому себе проявляти, а саме в чоловічому спорті.
Yeah, see that the boxing match has begun. Now we're going to have to mute this because of copyright reasons. The fight appears to be intense. We've got some shoes shining going on from what we can tell. And it looks like the guy in the red gloves has been taken out by a nice, clean... Let's go back and look at that again. We got to see this again. That was a clean little punch. I think it was a nice left hook. Hang on, let's take a look. It was a right hook. It was a right hook to the top of the head. That was really interesting. But it took him down. It was a knockdown. It wasn't a knockout, but it was a knockdown. You now see them having another little boxing bout. And now the man in the red gloves has been knocked down again. But of course, being the soldier he is, he's right back up and at it as far as we can see. But now the footage has changed to a whole other fight. And now we're kind of getting a montage of the two. Now the man in the blue gloves has also taken a knockdown as well. And not one, but two videos. Interesting to see. Now, these are the kinds of fights that you would have seen back in the day, like with Jack Dempsey and stuff. Like, it looks like they don't even have mouth guards. It's just gloves, and that's it. So with that, pretty neat to see. I think that's incredibly cool to see that Ukrainian soldiers are having a little bit of R&R, regardless of how they enjoy it, whether it's boxing, just sitting around, maybe reading, writing, whatever they would like, that they are having some downtime, and that morale is still incredibly high. Also, it's cool to see the efforts that they went through to actually make a boxing ring of a kind. They actually got some rope, put some posts into the ground, and they made a improvised ring in the middle of wherever they are. And so with that, an incredible little bit of footage to see, and it's good to know that Ukrainian soldiers are still out there and doing what they do. The Ukrainians are huge fans of boxing, and so this is probably, I guess you could say, the national sport of Ukraine beyond football, European football, otherwise known as soccer. With that, we're now going to be moving into the area of the Kharkiv and Belgorod region now that we've concluded our Location Unknown news. Moving into Belgorod, we have had a very interesting little video today. Apparently, a Russian truck was struck behind the lines. We're not really sure how or why, but we saw the Russian version of Ghost Rider coming to theaters near you right now. And so here's the video. Let me unmute this real quick and get this up. That burning smoke column in front of us is a burning Russian truck that is driving down the road and may be entirely out of control. When you see the driver here in the film moving forward, when you see the driver in front of them is backing up and trying to get away. Now the vehicle is running off the road and driving through the brush, still on fire, and it looks like the driver may still be on the gas because it's still moving. And it's still going. The driver's compartment is completely on fire. The driver is surely dead at this point, or in the process of dying from the fire. And they say it smells even from there. As the video ends, we kind of get an idea that whoever was in that truck is definitely not in that truck anymore, at least spiritually. It appears that the vehicle was hit in the cab and then managed to catch on fire. Something inside the cab caught on fire and then burned out the rest of it. It appears that the back canvas is not on fire yet, and so whatever is in the back of that truck appears to not have had the blaze catch up to it yet. If the blaze catches up to what's in the back, if it is ammunition, these people may be within the blast radius of wooden fragments, shrapnel fragments, and whatever may be coming out of that fireball when it does happen. A very interesting video to see, and one of the rare instances where I've ever seen the Ghost Rider outside of movies. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on out of the Belgorod area, and we're now going to be moving down into the Kharkiv region, where we have gotten some interesting news today. Starting off, we saw a Ka-52 firing at the Ukrainians somewhere in the Kharkiv region. We saw this from the, I guess you could say the HUD camera of the helicopter, and we can see this right here. You see them firing off unguided rockets, and for one of the few times, the helicopter is not firing upwards, it's in fact firing straight down into the tree line in front of them. We cannot confirm if Ukrainian forces were hit or not, we cannot see them on film, but it is interesting to note that the Russians are starting to use helicopters in the area once more. But you now see the usual tactic of tilting upwards and firing off the rockets en masse, and the video ends there. Not really much to comment on, rather than the fact that Russian helicopters have now been spotted in the Kharkiv region again, which comes to the question of why, and why is this one of the few times that that's happened? We're now going to move on into the next bit of news down near Vrchova, where we've seen the Ukrainians destroy 7 vehicles. 7 vehicles total. So let's take a look at this film and let's see what they were able to get. I bet you it has music. It has music. So you can see them here pointing out all of the vehicles. We can see all 7 of them. And we can see them described as to what they are. We can see Panzernik. I don't know what that means. We see a BTR, another BTR, a Stav, Panzernik again, a tank, and a BTR. So we've got 3 BTRs, a tank, 2 Panzers, and then a Stav. And now we can see all of them being hit by artillery. Regardless of what they were before, they're all about to become scrap now. And of course, the thick black smoke and the fire indicates that these vehicles have certainly been destroyed, and we can see the Ukrainians going through the lengths to prove that these vehicles were in fact wiped out. We now see the tank being destroyed, and right beside it there appears to be an intact BTR, which is now destroyed as well. It had a small little turret toss right there, but sadly, that doesn't even register. We've had so many turret tosses at this point, it's not even in the top 10. But with that, that's the end of the video, and 7 Russian vehicles destroyed in a single spot. We saw 1 tank, we saw 3 BTRs, and so a decent amount, somewhere around 10% of a BTG's entire armored force was just wiped out on film right in front of our very eyes, and we got confirmation of each vehicle being destroyed beyond the point of use or repair. With that, we're now going to be moving out of the Kharkiv area, and from this incredible news, and of course I have to note that there has been no offensive or defensive action in this area, but we have seen an elevation of activity. These 7 vehicles destroyed, along with the Russians using a Ka-52 in the area, does suggest that things may be heating up here, but as far as we can tell right now, there is no offensives or defensives that are ongoing in the area. It just seems that activity is beginning to elevate. With that, we've had nothing happen in the Chuhuiv area or the Stary Saltiv area. Of course, that is entirely on a reservoir, and so we're most likely not going to see activity there throughout the duration of the war. But further down in the Volnovakha area, we have seen a little bit of action from the famous 93rd Brigade, which has been using Polish SPGs today on film. Actually, I'm sorry, a correction here. Apparently this was in a Polish documentary, and the 93rd was using a drone to correct 155mm artillery fire. Here's the video.
Паралельно асфальту дороги в сторону Камишевахи їде єлі-єлі повільно танк.
Перон.
Стоп, розвернувся, заїхав в посадку.
Перун, прийом. Посадки.
В нормі сигнал падає, так що
We now
піднімайся.
see them looking at the
Але
Russian
стоп,
vehicle.
стоп.
Nice little hit right there. And just in case you all didn't see it, that appears to be a T-90A. We can see the IR spotlights right there on the front of the turret, or I guess you could call them IR jammers, whatever you would like. There are little boxes on the front of the turret, which signify it's a T-90A, which was just slammed dead onto the turret by a 155mm shell. Certainly not a good day for that tank.
Красота яка.
Дим дуже сильно стерчить.
Блядь,
сука, знімав камеру.
Ну самое интересное, что не в той, что цілились, блядь, а той, що ближче.
That's the end of the video, but it is great to see that the 93rd Brigade has managed to claim even another kill, and this time on a T-90A. We haven't seen a lot of T-90As recently. A lot of them were destroyed at the very start of the war, and we've kind of been getting the idea that T-90As may not exist anymore in large numbers. They may be an endangered species. But we can see here one of the rare ilk of the flock being knocked out again by the Ukrainian hunter. And so with that, that is an incredible thing to see, and I hope we see even more T-90s being wiped out. We don't even know how many there are left, but hopefully we'll see more of them being knocked out within the next coming days and weeks. With that, we're now going to be moving on to the outside area of the Volnovakha region. We're now going to be moving to the southern part of this front line, more closer to Izyum, which has been an incredibly quiet place for an incredibly long time, around 2 months at this point. But today we did get a small smidgeling of news, as a Ukrainian artillery crew was hitting a tank in the southern Izyum area, and the crew actually decided that it was time for them to leave after being hit. So with that, here's a video of the tank taking the shot, and then the crew leaving the place. We can see the tank right there in the tree line where my mouse cursor is circling. We now see it get hit.
Підарас. Ось, пішла.
And we see the tank still sitting there. It appears that it hasn't exactly brewed up. When we see the crew deciding that it's time for them to leave.
Що, поліція, блядь, визиває, міліція, блядь.
Єба, як уйобує,
Так і не ви, не сука в нього автомат. Не сучка.
Now we see the other two, the driver and the gunner, also getting out, deciding it's time to go. Notice how the commander was the first out of the tank. Now, the Russians usually make a propaganda story about the Ukrainian soldiers ran and the officers were the quickest to run. Literally, on film, you can watch the commander crawl out of the hatch of the tank and run away, probably before he even gave the other two crew members the order to bail. He was gone before anyone else even understood what was happening. And now the gunner and the driver are chasing the commander down, probably to beat him and assail him for leaving him behind.
Єлі біжить, на. Та ну йому прилетіло в їбало, звісно, єлі бігтиме.
Очко ж не желізне, блядь, єбана в рот, хіба можна витримати таке?
Бліндаж побігли там.
Ми там в землю, диви, як
Тут
випали,
в самому
нахуй.
кінці посадки бліндаж. Треба завтра по ньому отработать, блядь. А може навіть і сьогодні. Та ні, давай.
Probably the best starting gun that I've ever seen. Usually, whenever you go to an Olympic track and field event, you usually have someone fire a starting gun. This starting gun at the beginning of this video had to be the biggest one I've ever seen used at a track and field event from the Olympics.
Ну, сука.
As you can see, there was the starting gun right there. And I bet you that that starting gun sounded a little bit different than the normal one, considering that they were inside of a tank. Probably a lot of ringing and tinnitus of the ears. If they were in Detroit, it would almost be unnoticeable amongst the background noise. But we can see them here after the starting pistol sounded, going for the marathon.
Не сучка.
В білих футболках, блядь, кончені, сука, бігуть, блядь. Дві, гниди, блядь.
Hey, Matthew, quick question. Did you post that comment from my account?
Yes, I did.
Okay, just making sure, because I was making sure we just hadn't been hacked right there. I was about to freak out.
If the hacker is putting LSA in the chat, then they might be a friendly hacker.
Yeah, I was like, we might be in good business if they're a hacker and they're putting that in, but I was like, I have to make sure just in case if we're about to get deleted. So we can see the crew taking off after the marathon has now begun. And I think that this may be a charity run. I'm not really sure, but we'll find out later on. But with that, that's the end of the video, and it's great to see that the Russians have decided to grow hearts 3 times the normal size for a Russian, and they've now decided to start a charity run, and even had a starting gun to begin their trek. With that, we have now reached the end of this little video, and we're now going to be moving down into the Luhansk and Donetsk area, as well as the southern front, to cover the remainder of the news there. But of course, before we get there, we have to address another 3 questions from the chat, and I've seen loads of y'all sending super chats with lots of interesting questions and a lot of support for a certain idea. So before we get there, I just want to remind all of y'all again, you know, just in case, we're seeing how this goes tonight. If y'all would like to, well, actually, I highly suggest, and in fact, I highly recommend, that y'all slam that like button. There are 6,500 people watching right now, and we have 2,700 likes. And I know we can get that up to around 4,000 likes here within the next 30 minutes. And so if you would take a moment of your time to go down below the video and slam that like button, that will help us out a great deal to reach that 4,000 like goal. But now that we said that, sorry, I just stuttered all the way through that, we're now going to move on into our question segment and answer 3 questions from the chat. And after we answer those 3 questions, we'll then be moving on into the Luhansk, Donetsk, and Southern Front news, and finally the speech from Zelenskyy. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and we are now moving into the second question segment of the night. But before we get to our first super chat, I want to quickly go over the poll that I just ended about 5 minutes ago. The question was, which weapon should we place a message on? 46% of you said the T-72 tank. So, Enforcer, I can't remember how much that cost, but was that the $3,000 option?
That is the $3,000 one. And while we could do, while we could do the other ones with ease, we certainly could do those. The $3,000 one, we would probably have to get support from y'all to do. We'll try and don't start sending in stuff right now. We're going to try and figure out how to actually do this and have it as like a separate little thing. And I know that we have a lot of those that have already come in now. We'll see about how we work with those. But we might have a separate little thing set up or something like that to try and figure out how to do this. But imagine we're going to have a tank moving around the battlefield with Lee Spring Army on it. Now, that would be cool. Honestly, I'm really behind that idea. We will need a little bit of support to get us over the top there. We can put a decent amount towards it, but we will need a little bit of support. And so, if you would like, make sure to tell your friends about this, because I think we're actually going to try and get that one done, because I think, and I bet you could agree with me, Matthew, that would be about the coolest thing that we've ever done so far in the war.
That would be pretty cool, I have to admit, to see LSA or anything like that on the side of a tank. And also, I want to mention the most second popular option was the 155mm shell. So it looks like first option, T-72 tank, second option, the 155mm shell.
Now, y'all know what we could do is that we could do the 155mm shell entirely on our own. That one would be incredibly easy for us to do. The T-72, however, we were going to have to figure out some kind of a fundraiser thing to do. I'm not sure if we could do that on YouTube itself. It would most likely have to be a link in the description, because I don't know if that would be against YouTube's community guidelines to fundraise for something like that, considering the description on the website. But we will definitely try and figure out a way to have that done. 46% of y'all, the overwhelming majority amongst the 4 options, wanted it on a T-72, and I couldn't agree anymore. I see that we're actually having a little bit of an argument down here in the chat. Well, not really an argument, but more of differing opinions about what should go onto the tank. I've seen some people say put Lee Spring Army on the tank. Some people said put the Enforcer on it. And it seems like it's kind of divided amongst the 2 options from what I can see. And so we can run another poll. If we were to put, and this is the question, if we were to put an inscription on a T-72, what will it be? And then the options will be Lee Spring Army or the Enforcer. And so after you run that poll, we're then going to move into the question segment, answer 3 questions from the chat, and then we're going to move on into the Luhansk and Donetsk area.
All right, and I'm finalizing that poll right now. Let's see, if we were to put an inscription on a tank, which would you choose, Lee Spring Army or the Enforcer? And that poll is going live right now, so everybody should be seeing that at the moment, and there we go. I'm going to put my vote in for Lee Spring Army, just because that is the whole trademark of the channel. That'd be cool to see it on the side of a tank. But anyways, Moving on to our first super chat, not to get too sidetracked, we have a $100 super chat from Enforcer for President, who says, "This is for the LSA tank."
And thank you so much for the support, Enforcer for President. And I'm looking forward to the LSA tank. Honestly, I see that the support for the Enforcer is going up. Honestly, I kind of regret that we made that an option now, because I would much rather have the Lee Spring Army put onto a tank than the Enforcer only. The Lee Spring Army stands for every single one of us, including me and Matthew. Every single one of y'all has helped us to get this far, supporting funds, and of course, just supporting Ukraine all around. And so I would much rather have it contributed to every single one of y'all, because the Lee Spring Army does not leave a soul out. Any of y'all who watch this stream, any of y'all who have ever supported this channel, asked a question, talked in the comment section, or watched nightly has been a part of this Lee Spring Army since the first day you were here. And I feel like that would be the biggest tribute that we could give to all of y'all, is to put Lee Spring Army onto a tank, so that way it would represent every single one of y'all from top to bottom, start to finish. And it would also include Matthew and me, because obviously we're not excluded from the Lee Spring Army. We're kind of the heart of the thing. And so with that, I hope that kind of addresses that a little bit. And thank you so much, Enforcer for President, for the support. It helps this channel keep on running, and hopefully here soon, it'll help us to put Lee Spring Army onto a tank. And so with that, we are on to the next question, and thank you once again for the support.
And I see a lot of people saying, why not both? And, you know, I guess we could put both on there. It's just literally add a couple of characters to it, and we could.
Let's actually, wait a minute, let me go to that, video again, and let me go pull up the website. Let me make sure I get the name right. Come on, load. Click the signmyrocket.com. Signmyrocket.com. They're getting a lot of website traffic today from all of us, probably. They're probably already getting that anyways. Weapon. Let's see. Write something to the Russians. Do we have a limit? Text restrictions. Only easy drawing. Smile, heart, etc. No bad words about politicians. Yes! Alright. they also are politically neutral, except the Russians. No hard languages. Wow, they actually set out what's a difficult language for them. Chinese, I can highly agree. Georgian, aw. Hebrew, now that one's kind of a little difficult, but I have written Hebrew before. It's in my opinion, it's not that tough, but then again, it may be tough for them to write.
It says no text that can lead to international problems. I wonder what that means.
I don't know, but let's see if we can write in the Enforcer. Leaf Spring Army. Alright. We can do it. And you can actually put both of them on there. And so the poll kind of becomes irrelevant now, because if we wanted to, we could put the Enforcer. Actually, better yet, we could do something like that. So that way there's a divide in between the two. The Enforcer, Lee Spring Army. And we could also put YT on there, so that way everyone knows that we're a YouTube channel and can come over here and of course get behind the wonderful things that we're doing here in the Lee Spring Army. Now I would put LSA on it. I've seen some people saying why not just put LSA onto it. I would, but I don't want to, because then it'll become ambiguous as to what it really stands for, because people could be like, Luhansk, you know, Soldier Army. I've seen someone say that, and so I want to make sure it's clear that it's the Lee Spring Army and not like an ambiguous acronym. And so with that, but now we can see that it's possible to put both of them on there, and we're getting even closer to doing something like this. And so, with that in mind, we've got a dream, everyone, and I think that this dream is going to start coming into reality very soon. And so with that, thank you all once again for supporting us so far, and also supporting this idea, because if we can get enough momentum behind this, we're 100% doing it. And so with that, we are on to, and one other thing, this is going to have to be something I'll have to decide entirely on my own. I would like to run a poll on this, but I'm going to have to decide whether this is done on a stream or on a video. I feel like it would be a lot better to do this on a video, because I would like to show us putting that in, and then also getting the end result on film or in a picture of the tank with the inscription on it. And so I think we may set that up more so for a video. And also, I feel like that would be, we're not going to say that. Y'all maybe just get keyed on it in that when it happens. I'll talk that over with everyone in the background. But with that, I hope that does address that comment, and we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a $50 super chat from Robert Harrington, who says, "Keep up the great job, guys. Us in the LSA in chat support you and enjoy the great conversations. Thank you very much, and Slava Ukraine.
Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much once again for the support, and thank you so much for enjoying this channel. We've actually had a treasure trove of ideas come tonight from everyone, and it's wonderful to know that a lot of people are getting behind this idea, and also a lot of people have just been enjoying our stream and this channel by and large for the entirety of the war. And so thank you once again for the support and the kind words to both of us. It does mean a lot, and thank you once again. And so with that, we are going to move on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to move on into the Luhansk, Donetsk, Southern Front, and the speech from President Zelenskyy. And so with that, what is the next question?
All right, and the final one of this segment goes to Susan L., who puts in a $45 donation and says, "Hi, I'm up and watching live in the UK. Enjoy coffee and a pizza on me." And thank you very much, Susan, for that. And it's good to know that we have people in Britain watching the streams.
And thank you so much for the support as well, Susan. And of course, we always enjoy our coffee, our pizza, and all kinds of things. And when we went over to Britain, we actually saw that a lot of people enjoyed the same things, surprisingly. Coffee, pizza, and the like. And I've thought it's kind of weird because you would think that the British wouldn't be that into pizza, although they are far closer to the origin of pizza than the United States is. But somehow they are too, because we had a pretty tasty pizza in Bath when we went over there on a trip one time. So, very cool thing, of course, to get support from our British viewers, and I thank you so much for enjoying this channel and helping us to keep the thing running. If it wasn't for y'all, it wouldn't be possible for us to do this, and I thank you all once again for supporting this channel and helping us to keep on running these streams and keep on dreaming big, especially with this tank idea that we've got. And so with that, we are now going to move on out of this question segment into our last bits of news from the Luhansk, Donetsk, Southern Front, and the speech from President Zelenskyy. And so without further ado, let's get right into it. Starting off in the area near the Seversky Donets River, this marker is not entirely accurate, but somewhere in this area, we saw a Stugna attack on the Russians. We don't see a lot of these anymore, but we are seeing one right here. So count your lucky stars, we've got one. And so here's the video.
Все. Пострел. Вылазит он.
Что там, живи, механик? Танк.
Он.
Выше.
Опа.
You see the missile on its way.
Смотри, стоит. На!
And it hit dead on.
Украине, блядь!
Героям слава.
You hear the crew going wild.
Смотри, как горит.
Pretty nice to see, and they definitely took that tank out. That explosion was certainly some kind of ammunition, and the crew was most likely fried. It's great to see that the Ukrainian Stugna crews are still out there and still slamming the Russians, and of course, every time a Stugna hits a Russian tank, it's keeping the Russians at bay. With that, we're now going to be moving on to our next bit of news from the Luhansk area, where we've also seen a little bit of occurrence on the front lines, where a T-72 was knocked out. And here's the video.
Шо, въебали злого інгуша, блядь.
See the Ukrainians moving through burned wood.
Пиздують за добичі. Біжи, не очкуй. Я тебе прикрию, Кент. Злий інгуш довийобувався. Я ж кажу, він от тут... Каже, пулемет би сняв, о, придурок. Диви бумагу.
You see the destroyed T-72B3 right out there in the middle of this burned wood.
Дивися на башню туди, щоб той ніякий дебіл не виліз. Броніки скидує. Бери РПС, може комусь надо буде. Не може снять. У Вови ножик є, блядь. Цигані, блядь. Я ж кажу... Давай. Нас? Ну то він мене й не бачив. Я ж кажу, я з кустів вийшов, він мене не замітив. А було розстояння, ну максимум 100.
It's interesting to see that this whole entire forest is burned down. The tank's cool, but it's crazy to see that the Ukrainians sometimes actually just burn whole woods down to get at the Russians. It's a pretty good tactic, actually. It usually gets rid of them pretty easily, but still crazy to see on the ground. It looks like something from World War I.
Я думав у танк залізти, ну потім подумав, може чув, розтяжку якусь поставили. Опять термос. Сука.
We now see them running back from the destroyed tank.
Давай, відходимо, бо наші хуярять.
Сука, розкрадають русські танки.
Ну, воїни света, блядь.
Мародьори, йобані, блядь.
That's the end of the video, and it's good to see that the Ukrainians have managed to knock out another T-72B3, and also a Forst in the meantime. Now, it is a war, and I know that there's about to be a group of people out there, oh, the trees, and I'm not getting into that. But the thing is that it is a war, and this is a pretty solid tactic of wiping out Russians as a forest fire. Usually forest fires travel so fast that you really don't have time to react to them, especially when you're in a slower 30-mile-per-hour tank. And so the unfortunate tankers just get caught in the fire and, you know, just kind of go to sleep. So with that, that's the end of the video, and it's great to see that another T-72B was knocked out by somewhat creative means. With that, we're now going to be moving further back beyond the lines, near the Lysychansk area, where we've seen a Ka-52 firing directly over Russian soldiers. Now, knowing the Russian track record, I would be sweating bullets if I was a Russian soldier under this Ka-52, because it wouldn't be too much to ask if the thing just tilted downwards and fired at them, or crashed right into them. But here's the video. With that, that's the end of the video, and a interesting one to see at that. Apparently, oh, I misread. I'm sorry. It didn't fire over him. It flied over him. I'm sorry. Sometimes my entire brain plays tricks on me, and I think that I'm reading one thing and seeing things sometimes while looking at something entirely different. But we did see it fly over them, and that was a pretty interesting video to see at that. Hopefully we'll see that Ka-52 get shot down in the future, as well as that column, maybe NAA, that T-72B earlier on. But we can only dream. With that, we're now going to be moving further down from the Lysychansk area and more towards the Bakhmut area, where we have seen a little bit of a resumption of picked up activity. Starting off, we've seen the Ukrainians evacuating wounded under artillery fire. Here in this clip, we can see Ukrainian trenches being bombarded by artillery, as we can see right here. We also see a civilian car further back to the right side of the screen. And here are Ukrainian soldiers in that trench moving around. We now see them with a stretcher in hand. Now we can see that they are getting the wounded out of this trench and now pulling them out and trying to get them to the car. If apparently they don't have a stretcher, they're just carrying the soldier by the arms and legs. Now we can see that they got the wounded man in the car, and they have luckily been able to get the car running, even under an artillery barrage. None of the tires appear to be punctured, and they are now out of there, saving the wounded soldier, hopefully, and getting him out of the line of danger. That's the end of the video, and we can see here with the Z in the top left corner, this was even filmed by the Russians, and even in their own videos, they don't win. And so with that, that's the end of the video, and it's good to see that Ukrainian medics and soldiers take the utmost care of taking care of each other, and that they were able to get that wounded soldier out of there as fast as they could. With that, we're now going to be moving on to our next bit of film, where we've seen a tit-for-tat with the helicopters. We saw a Ka-52 up there in the Lysychansk area, and we also saw a Ukrainian Mi-24 firing off unguided rockets today somewhere near the Bakhmut area in eastern Ukraine. With that, here's the video. We can now see it firing the unguided rockets, and then tilting back down towards the ground to get out of there. Pretty nice to see, and I hope that those rockets did hit their mark and were incredibly accurate. With that, we're now going to be moving out of the Luhansk area, and of course, while we've seen a pickup of activity in the area today, this is not suggesting that activities have resumed. In fact, as far as we know, the Russian forces have still stopped in this area and are not making any ground. The Ukrainians, while of course conducting light skirmishes here and there, have also not committed to any kind of offensives, and so for now, this entire area of the front lines does remain stable, and most likely will not see any changes in it for the time being. With that, we're now going to be moving further south to the area of Svitlodarsk, and more importantly, the larger town south of it, Orlivka. Orlivka. Now I really hurt my throat there. That hurt like hell. Sorry about that, everyone. But in the area of Orlivka, we have seen that the Russians have had a little bit of an unfortunate occurrence today as an ammunition depot exploded in somewhat fiery fashion. And so, here's the video. Well, actually, this is the first one. We actually have two. This one shows the aftermath of the explosion a couple of seconds after it actually happened.
Стекла посыпались.
Pretty big mushroom cloud, I'd have to say.
Я не пойму, оно не свистит вообще.
Ну, может, там что-то уже взорвалось. Блин, костюмчик.
That's the end of that video, but we actually have a second one, much shorter one, that actually shows the explosion of the ammunition depot. It kind of gives you an idea of the scale of the explosion instead of just the mushroom cloud alone. Actually, these are pictures, as we can see here, of the ammunition depot. Sorry, I'm trying to think. I do think that we had a video at one point of the explosion. It was like 4 seconds long, and it's kind of odd. 1 second, let me check something. Okay, our stream's running fine. I was just making sure because it said we had no data on it over here on the YouTube screen. With that, we're now going to be moving further behind the lines near the Orlivka area, where we can then see a Buk, a Ukrainian Buk, firing at a Russian target somewhere in eastern Ukraine. We see they did a little bit of... Alright, now we gotta mute it. But we can see the Buk firing, and then we get here a remix. We can see the Buk again, now stowing away the remaining 3 missiles it has, and most likely preparing to move again. It's great to see that Ukrainian air defenses are still active all around the country, and that they are still defending the Ukrainian airspace. By and large, while the Ukrainian Air Force has helped to own the skies, the surface-to-air missile defense systems like this Buk have been owning the skies ever since the beginning of this war. With that, we're now going to be moving on to our next bit of news from the Orlivka area, where we've also seen the Ukrainians using light anti-tank weapons somewhere in the area. And so with that, here's the video. We can see the tank right out there in the distance. We now see them firing it, and a hit. We hear a second hit as well. The video ends, but as you can get the idea, slamming a anti-tank weapon directly into the side of a Russian tank usually spells disaster for the Russians and success for the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians will be rejoicing about this attack for days to come, because it is one of the tank kills that unit has most likely gotten multiple times over the course of this war. And so with that, that is the end of that little video. And as we can see here in the Orlivka area, things are starting to heat up, and specifically with that ammo depot. The ammo depot appeared to be of a rather large size, letting us know that even more units in this area of the front line as well have now been depleted of a decent amount of their ammunition stores, most likely putting them in a difficult situation and tying them down to where they most likely won't be able to push any kind of counterattacks or offensives of any sort in the near future. With that, we're now going to be moving south into the Donetsk region, where we've also seen no frontline activity to speak of, but something interesting happened within Donetsk city. We saw incendiary weapons being used on Donetsk. Now, some people said, and did a lot of geolocations that I saw, and they claimed that this may have been the Russians firing on Donetsk city, but at the same time, these may be the Ukrainians firing at Donetsk city. We're not really sure who did this, if it was the Ukrainians. Can't really say that it's a bad thing. At this point, it would be a tit for tat. The Russians, of course, used incendiary weapons first. So for some reason, the Ukrainians started using them. There's really no way you could blame them. That would be like blaming the British, the Americans, the French, and so on for using poison gas after the Germans were the first to use it. It just became the way of war. And so with that, here's the video of incendiary munitions falling on the city of Donetsk.
Офигеть. Но это ПВО сработало, других вариантов нет. А, зажигалка, фосфор. Фосфор пошел.
I like how they have the Attack on Titan music playing in the background.
Блин, там моя машина.
That's the end of the video, but an interesting one to see. Not only do we have that video, we also have a second one showing the Donetsk area being bombarded with the incendiary rounds. And so here's the video from another angle of these white phosphorus or whatever they are. I know that someone's about to say there's something like I don't really know. Anyways, they're incendiary rounds, and here's the video from another angle of them raining down on Donetsk city. With that is the end of the video, and it is an interesting sight. We don't know if those were the Ukrainians that were conducting this attack or the Russians, but what we do know is that incendiary munitions fell straight into the center at the downtown area of Donetsk city, and we will be looking into that information and trying to find out who actually did it, why, and how much damage was actually inflicted upon the area of Donetsk. With that being said, we have not heard a lot of news from the Donetsk area of any kind of offensive or defensives that have occurred from either side. It appears that the artillery battles of prior days have now died down again, and the front has once again fallen into a stalemate. We will be looking into this information and seeing if there are any changes in the coming days, but for now, that is what we're basing our news off of. Now, to move on to our final bit of news before the speech from President Zelenskyy, we are now going to see that the 68th Jaeger Brigade has hit a BTR-82 somewhere in the area of Volnovakha. With that, here's the footage of the imminent destruction of this BTR. And, of course, great music. We can see some Russians here scurrying through the trees. You know, I feel like a David Attenborough commentary would be great for these kinds of videos. But we can now see what appears to be mortars raining down on the BTRs and hitting it right at the rear of the vehicle. We can see another round land further back. And now the BTR-82 is doing a little bit of a smoke. You can see more shells landing around the BTR-82. and now a little bit more smoky. This time it appears to be a little bit more of a serious smoke. Well, that's the end of the video, and it is good to see that the 68th Jaeger Brigade, which is something more of a light infantry brigade, has been able to knock out 8 BTR-82 somewhere on the southern front. With that, we have not really gotten a lot of news today from the southern front. Of course, as usual, it's largely fallen into stalemate and also become static. And so, for the foreseeable future, that is most likely the way it will be. And it is good to see that if we do get any news from there, it's usually news of Ukrainian successes in taking out even more Russians. With that, we have now reached the end of all of our frontline news, and now we're going to circle back to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Zelenskyy. And so, without further ado, here's the speech from the man himself, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And so let me move those subtitles up to here, and here is the speech. Let me back it up to the very start.
Українці, українки, завершується вже 150-й день нашої оборони від Росії, від їх вторгнення. І цей день в чомусь схожий на всі попередні, знову ракетні удари, тяжкі бої на багатьох ділянках, Донбас, Харківщина, знову обстріли. Але в іншому, оцей день видно, наскільки ми просунулись до нашої перемоги. Вона буде. Передусім, можна сказати зараз про Херсонську область. Окупанти намагалися там закріпитись, їхні колаборанти наробили різних наглих заяв, які російською мовою називаються дуже влучним словом – шапка закидательства. Але чим це допомогло їм? Збройні сили України крок за кроком просуваються в області. Сьогоднішній російський ракетний удар по Одесі, по порту нашому, цинічний, виявився ударом також по політичних позиціях самої ж Росії. Якщо хтось у світі раніше ще міг говорити, що потрібен якийсь там діалог з нею, з Росією, якісь там домовленості, бачите, що відбувається. Сьогоднішні російські калібри знищили саму можливість для таких заяв. І ми бачимо абсолютну одностайність світової реакції на цей удар. Окупантам вже нікого не обманути. Серед іншого, в результаті цього удару пошкоджено будівлі Одеського художнього музею. Ракети вдарили зовсім поруч з історичними об'єктами Одеси, з тим, що є надбанням не тільки для української культури, для культури Європи. Це очевидне російське варварство. Ще більше наближає нас до отримання саме тієї зброї, яка потрібна для нас, для нашої перемоги. Сьогодні в столиці провів переговори з конгресменами США на чолі з Адамом Смітом, головою комітету Палати представників, який опікується Збройними силами. І ми розуміємо одне одного з півслова. І це теж відображає, який шлях ми пройшли за всі ці дні війни. Хочу, до речі, подякувати народу США, президенту Байдену за новий пакет безпекової допомоги на $270 мільйонів. Говорив сьогодні з президентом Казахстану паном Такаєвим. Подякував йому за принципову підтримку України, нашого суверенітету, міжнародного права. Обговорили конкретні проекти у сферах енергетики, економіки, цифровізації. І нарешті сьогодні в Києві відбувся вже другий щорічний саміт перших леді і джентльменів. Цьогоріч він зібрав ще більше учасників, об'єднав Київ з Варшавою, Брюсселем, Лондоном, Вашингтоном, об'єднав топових політиків, суспільних діячів інших країн та наших воїнів, представників бізнесу, спорту, медіа, письменників, зірок шоу-бізнесу, освітян, лікарів. В сучасному світі неможливо обходитись тільки звичною класичною дипломатією. Потрібна м'яка сила, потрібне щире бажання різних суспільств допомогти державі, яка бореться за свою незламність і незалежність. І з цієї точки зору саміт став сьогодні дуже успішним. Ініціатива першої леді України за 2 роки фактично стала традиційним форматом, унікальним для світової спільноти. Усі визнають потенціал м'якої сили, але тільки Україні вдалося направити її незламність, її потенціал в конкретну дипломатичну практику. І загалом ми досягли за ці майже 5 місяців настільки масштабної та дипломатичної підтримки для України, що Росія не зможе цьому нічого протиставити. Настане день, коли і ракети втратять для окупантів сенс. Зараз вдається збивати частину ракет. Мета – збивати кожну. І ми будемо робити все необхідне, щоб все ж таки отримати сучасні, ефективні системи протиповітряної оборони. Наша мета. Держава-терорист щоденно поставляє нові аргументи для цього. Станом на сьогодні 24 тисячі захисників, захисниць України відзначені державними нагородами за свою хоробрість. 160 воїнам присвоєно звання Герой України. Мільйони наших людей долучилися до захисту нашої держави. І щиро я їм вдячний. Кожному і кожній. Наша незалежність – це наш здобуток. Спільний. Перемога буде спільною. Обов'язково буде. Знаю, вірю. Слава Україні!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Zelenskyy, and that also rounds out our day 150 news. I don't really know if it's actually hit a lot of people at this point, and of course we mentioned this a little bit at the beginning of the stream, but it's been 150 days since the start of the war. We only have 50 more days to go until we reach day 200, and just 50 days before right now, we were on day 100. And we were celebrating that the Ukrainians have survived 100 days. They've now survived another 50 and are halfway to surviving even another 100 days on top of the original 100. I thank you all so much once again for watching our news for the night. It's of course been a pleasure to tell you all what the Ukrainians have been up to here on day 150, defending their country from the Russians day in, day out, every single hour and every single minute. And I thank you all once again for watching. And if you did send in a super chat, we will make sure to get to every single one of them and address them. And we're also going to make sure to get around to as many live chats as we can and answer those as well. If you would like, please make sure to hit the like button. We have gotten out up to 3,600 likes, and I know that we can make it to 4,000 before we get to the end of the stream tonight. And so please make sure to slam that like button. It takes a small second, but it helps us out a whole load. Also, tell your friends about the channel if you think they too would be interested in the war and the news, because if you do enjoy it, they may enjoy it as well. So with that, thank you all once again, and we're now going to move into the question segment. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and we are now moving into the final question segment of the night. And first up, we have a $45 super chat from Susan L. once again, who says, Leaf Spring Army sticks it to the orcs. Let's do it.
And I do agree. The Leaf Spring Army ought to stick it to the orcs, and I think that it would be a great thing to do. We're still going to look into how to exactly to get that done. I was actually thinking about this while we were running through some videos, and that's kind of why I was staying quiet. I think a GoFundMe would probably be the best way to organize the funds, so that way we can have those specifically earmarked, kind of like a fundraiser, and hopefully do that over the course of a specific day. It wouldn't be a Sunday, because of course we're doing that for actual nonprofits helping out in Ukraine. We will most likely try and run that as a let me think. A fundraiser. Yeah, it's probably like a Saturday fundraiser or something in the middle of our normal stream. Is a link in the description. So with that, I hope that does answer kind of like how I'm kind of thinking about doing that. And the thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for helping to keep this stream running.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Santiago Flores, who says, all my donations will be in the memory of Lisa. Also, Enforcer, concerning the talk about aircraft for Ukraine, I guess everybody has figured out that Russia is a big paper bear, a bully. And good work, guys.
And thank you so much for the support. And of course, Lisa was one of the saddest stories that we had heard during the course of the entire war, and probably the one of the many people who have, of course, unfortunately lost their lives in Ukraine, that will be remembered for years to come. Of course, it was an unfortunate thing that happened. But moving on from that, I thank you so much for enjoying what we do here on this channel, trying to make sure that we report on the war every single day. And thank you once again for the support. And can you reread that last part beyond the Lisa bit, Matthew, so that way we can make sure to address the entire super chat?
The last part was, I guess everybody has figured out that Russia is a big paper bear and a bully.
And yes, I would entirely agree with that. I do believe that everyone's kind of figured that out at this point, because it seems like people are openly talking about and openly trying to send aircraft to Ukraine without any reservations as to what the Russians might do. And so with that, I hope that does address that part of the question as well. And thank you once again for the wonderful support. It helps out our channel a great deal. And with that, we are on to the next question. And thank you once again.
And next up, we have a $20 super chat from Scott, who says, here's $20 towards sending a message to Russia. Keep up the great work, guys.
And thank you very much for the support. We are going to make sure to try and get that message to the Russians as soon as possible. I think we're going to make it into a video, so that way we can make sure to compile it over time. But I think that we're about to do something pretty neat, and it will make sure that the Lee Spring Army actually has a on-the-ground presence in this war, at least in writing. And so with that, I thank you once again for the support, and I thank you for backing up that idea. I think it's going to be an incredibly cool one. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Super Action General, who says, I've been in the Lee Spring Army since day 74 in Slava, Ukraine. Question for the enforcer. Do you think that the HIMARS will be used against the Kerch Bridge in Crimea, Don? If so, how effective would a barrage be, Don?
And thank you very much for the support, Super Action General, Don. And to answer your question, I think that the HIMARS will not be used against the Kerch Bridge. The Russians have kind of made it clear with a threat, although their threats seem to be incredibly weak, that if an American weapon like the HIMARS is used to attack anything within Russia, or the Kerch Bridge, which they've made a special exception about, they will pretty much treat the United States like they are directly involved in the war, and maybe just move into a conventional war with the United States as well. And so I think that there is an agreement that would stop that from happening by and large. And so my opinion, based off of the information we have and also the statements that have been made, is that no, the HIMARS unfortunately would not be used to hit the Kerch Bridge, and the Ukrainians will have to find another weapon to try and do the job, hopefully one that can be domestically made. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, and I thank you once again for the support. It helps our channel to keep on running. And thank you so much for enjoying this channel and being a Lee Spring Army member since day 74, which has been a pretty long time. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that does address the comment, and we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a $20 super chat from Montern, who returns to the channel once again and says, for the message to Russia, let's go.
And thank you so much for the support, Montern, and we are going to make sure that a message does get delivered to the Russians. We may send a message in the form of a 155mm shell, so that way we can see what it hits, and then, a tank as well, so that way we'll have a lasting a little bit of a message in Ukraine. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, and I thank you so much for the support. And of course, it helps this channel to keep on running, and it helps us to keep on trying to keep these dreams alive, much like that one right there. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
And moving on, we have a $20 super chat from William Allen, who says, okay, split this donation to also help the LSA send a message. Woo!
And thank you so much for the support, William Allen. It seems like we're going to be having a lot of messages tonight talking about sending a message, and we are certainly going to do that here in the future. I think for the purposes of Sunday, I'm going to have to figure out how to do it. I'm going to have to see about auto-inputting the information so that way maybe we don't have to show it on the stream. But maybe trying to get a 155mm shell with a message written on it like that, where the Lee Spring Army sends its regards on the shell or something similar to that, and do that on tomorrow's stream, and then start working towards having the massive one done, which is getting a tank with the inscription written on it. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, and I thank you once again for the wonderful support. You've been a long-time channel supporter, and we are going to make sure to try and get a message out to the Russians in multiple ways that the Lee Spring Army supports Ukraine through and through. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again, William Allen.
And next up, I'm going to recognize several $20 donations. All the messages were regarding signing the missile fund and also sending it. So up first, we have a $20 super chat from Kevin Hansen. We also have one from Daniel Tiglis, as well as Fat Wong 36. Also Smokey Valdez and Jerry Duckworth. All of them are in favor of the missile fund.
And it seems like there's a lot of unanimous support around here for the missile fund, and I'd have to agree. it's probably about the coolest thing that we've ever had the chance to do, rather than supporting the Ukrainians through Doctors Without Borders and such organizations like that. And so I think at this point it's definite. I mean, like, you know, I don't even know why I'm saying at this point. I think it's definite at this point. We're going to definitely be looking into how to do that. So give us over the Monday break after this fundraiser's over tomorrow, and we'll probably have come up with a way to do this. We'll probably give about a week to raise the funds for the T-72 inscription, and then we will move into getting it. And everything will be done in the background. We'll be making a video on it. And we'll also be thinking about adding in a couple of other cool things as well. And so with that, we are going to move on to the next one. And I thank you all so much for the support. And I'm glad that a lot of people are getting behind this idea, because I thought it was really cool. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I saw a couple of people mention in the chat that we need a yeehaw on the missile. And I would agree with that. We really do need to put yeehaw on there somewhere. I'm not sure if the enforcer would be up for it, but yeah, yeehaw at the end of it would be like the final like touches on the quote.
I've got a pretty good idea. I would say that the tank should have the Enforcer, YouTube, Leaf Spring Army on it, and then the 155mm shell, because I know we can do that one tomorrow. The 155mm shell will have the Leaf Spring Army sends its yeehaws on it, or something like that. So that, like, some Russians being sent to the wild blue yonder by a yeehaw shell. That would be pretty funny. You know, I would like to see if y'all back up that idea too, so that way we can kind of touch on all the bases right there. If we were able to know that one of them was going to be targeted at Mr. Lunchtime, I would maybe put Mr. Lunchtime on it just to have it, but, you know, then again, we're not really sure where the shells are being fired, but still, we've got a lot of cool ideas, but of course, we can only do a few of them due to how much the tank costs. So with that, we're going to move on to the next one, and actually, it is a pretty good idea to put a yeehaw onto one of them. And so with that, on to the next one.
All right, and also real quick, Enforcer, I saw Santiago Flores put in the live chat, do we have any guest stars tomorrow? I know for a fact that Operator Starsky is coming on tomorrow night for the fundraiser stream, but I'm going to let the Enforcer address the rest. I'm not sure if we have confirmed information on our other guest at the moment.
So we are planning on having our largest Sunday ever tomorrow. We're planning on having a lot of guest stars on, but to be entirely honest with y'all, in the background, while I'm looking at everything, it seems like we're not getting any responses from the people I've reached out to be guest stars, so I'm not really sure if it would happen or not. In fact, I'm looking through all of my emails right now, and I'm just not seeing anything. I've sent out emails to Speak the Truth. I've also sent out an email to Dennis Davidoff, and I have not gotten a response back from either of them. So, unfortunately, just due to the short notice of it, if I don't have a response by tomorrow morning, even if they do respond at that point, they wouldn't be able to come on, because I would have to figure out a way to have them in and all that stuff. So if y'all have any way of letting them know that I've tried to reach out to them, please go over there and let them know, because we're trying to get as many guest stars on as possible, have them all shouted out on their channel, so that way they can come over here and we can have the biggest fundraiser we've ever been able to do. So with that, I hope that does answer the question. I don't know. There's just a common thing these days with people not reading their emails, so maybe that's the case. I'm not really sure. But, you know, with that, we're now going to move on to the next one. And I hope that does answer your question, Santiago, about what kind of guest stars are going to be on tomorrow. We are fairly certain that Starsky will be on. He's already said he will be. So, of course, things could pop up and he may not be able to come on. And so right now, if he's not able to come on, he's the only confirmed guest we have. It'll just be Matthew and me tomorrow. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And I hope that does answer your question.
And next up, we have a $20 super chat from Jay Bagwell, who says, here's to seeing a Leaf Spring Army 155mm shell being dropped down Mr. Lunchtime's extra large pants.
Well, thank you very much for the support, and we have an idea for the 155mm shell and the T-72. Of course, the T-72, like I've said, will take some work from the entirety of the Leaf Spring Army to get that one done, but the 155mm shell can be done, of course, by me and Matthew. And so we are going to make sure to do that, and I thank you all so much once again for the support on that idea. I think it's a really cool one. And so with that, we are going to move on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support on the idea.
And next up, we have a $20 super chat from Sice SP, and also a $20 super chat from Aaron Taubman, who say Leaf Spring Army.
And also, Lee Spring Army, and I thank you both for the support, and I'm glad that y'all do enjoy this wonderful Lee Spring Army. The thousands of people who are a member of it. Some, like, actually, let me go check real quick. Some, ... let me go over here, let me pull this up, let me look at this. Some 89,315 Lee Spring Army members. And that is really huge, actually, when you think about it. And so thank you so much for enjoying every single one of them, and also the stream as well. And of course, that support helps us to keep this thing going, and helps us to keep on running these streams daily, dreaming about moving even further and covering more stuff outside of Ukraine and many other things. And so thank you once again. I hope that does answer the question, and will answer the comments of the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a $20 super chat from Mel Cortez, who says, Enforcer, you could take the cash and buy a prepaid Visa. That way you don't use your own card info. I say let's get the tank.
I would agree, and that's actually a pretty good way to do that as well. Of course, I'd have to talk that over probably with Matthew about how we would be able to do that on stream, but I honestly think that it would be incredibly cool to do that. I think we would most likely do it as a video, though, so that way we could just put in that information behind the scenes, and then add the whole video together from start to finish, where we pay the money, they put it on the tank, then they show it on the tank, maybe a video as well, so that way we can upload it as an entire video from start to finish, and it's not being done in pieces over multiple streams, probably over weeks. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question. I thank you once again for the support, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And moving on to the next super chat, we have a $15 donation from Andrew J, who says, Enforcer, the most effective way to end Russia's blockade of Ukrainian grain is to supply Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk missiles to wipe out Russia's Black Sea Navy.
That's a fairly good idea. But Tomahawks are actually incredibly old. Even during the Gulf War and the invasion of Iraq, they were getting pretty old at that point as well. But still, they do the job, and I believe that that would be a pretty decent way of making sure that the blockade would be lifted. But then again, you would have to consider, is that using a U.S. weapon and going a little bit too far, where the Russians would try and say that we're getting directly involved into the war? And that would be something that you'd have to look at in its own little bubble, I guess you could say. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. Pretty solid idea, but I would like to see what everyone in the live chat thinks about it as well, because it's interesting, but it does have the chance of implications as well. And so with that, I hope that does answer the comment, and I thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have an $11 super chat from Duncan VR, who says, I like you very much, sign my rocket, use M777. Here's my support for it. Love from the Lee Spring Army and F. Putin. And Duncan VR snuck in a bah.
Well, thank you very much for the support, Duncan VR, and we're definitely going to try and get on that and make sure that we get a message to the Russians that the Lee Spring Army has been here the whole time, and regardless of who did the DDoS attacks a while ago, we are still here. And if it was the Russians, they are definitely going to find out very soon. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, Duncan. Thank you once again for the support and being a longtime viewer, helping this channel out, and of course just enjoying these streams, because it's a high honor to know that a lot of people watch this nightly and find it to be a reliable source of news. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next we have an $11 super chat from Mike D, who says, the shipping agreement was hosted by Turkey. How pissed do you think they are? Will they consider this a betrayal of trust? Were penalties written in the agreement for breaking the agreement?
I don't really believe there's any penalties written into these agreements, and there's not really a way for them to be enforceable if they were. It's not like Russia is going to end up in civil claims court and end up having $70,000 as a ruling against them. So I don't think there would be any way for there to be any sort of punitive actions against the Russians for breaking this agreement if this did make it fall apart. And of course, the Turks are probably incredibly angry that they went through all of this negotiating and discussing just for it all end up at the wayside as the Russians begin bombarding the ports just hours later. And so with that, I hope that does kind of answer the question in a way. And with that, thank you once again for your support. It helps this channel to keep on running. And I'm sorry, everyone, if I am kind of running through these a little quickly, but my neck muscle is snapping right now. And so with that, we're going to move on to the next question.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Adrian, And you can say that in that little accent if you want, Enforcer, real quick.
Hey, yo, Adrian.
There you go. Adrian, I hope you like that. So Adrian says, all this talk about sending A-10s is great, but another option would be to have the AV-8B Harrier jump jet. They are being retired also, and if they send them over, I would volunteer to go and help maintain them.
That's a fairly good idea, and I don't know if... I think the AV-8s have been retired for quite some while, several years at this point. And so in that regard, I think that they would be certainly a good aircraft to send over, as some of them are still in flying condition, some are in a boneyard. And that would be pretty cool if we sent those over. Now, those are getting a little bit old, but I still think that they're fairly competent. The VTOL systems that they used are still fairly modern. In fact, you know, a lot of countries have always tried to emulate what the Harrier did, but never really did it quite as well. And so I would definitely have to say that would be a decent idea to send over as well. And so with that, thank you once again for the support and the good idea right there, because the Harriers are, of course, pretty interesting. But then again, it's a training issue as well that we'd have to look into. How long and how difficult would it be to train Ukrainian pilots on how to use an AV-8 Harrier like that? And so with that, we are on to the next one, and I hope that does answer your question. And thank you once again for the support.
And next up, we have a $10 super chat from Scott Mensing and a $10 super chat from Pooker1228, who says, from the Leaf Spring Army with love.
And thank you so much for the support. And of course, from the Leaf Spring Army with love, it might be put on the artillery shell along with a yeehaw. Of course, I can't do that too high because of the neck. But with that, thank you so much once again to both of y'all for the support. I'm glad that y'all do enjoy this channel, and that support does help us to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again to both of y'all for the support.
And next up, we have a $10 super chat from Sweaty Chungus, who says, on the tank fund, see if they will put all of our usernames from everyone who donates on the tank fund, along with whatever you have inscribed. I want them to see how this sweaty, or excuse me, I want them to see how sweaty this Chungus can get.
Well, thank you very much for the support. But if they did that, the tank would look like graffiti. I don't know if they would be able to do it. And it seems like, let's see, what's the name of that website again? Let me go to it. Let's look it up again. Ukrainian soldiers, come on, let's load that video. Signmyrocket.com. Let's go there again. Sign my rocketa. Here's the website. Let's pick the T-72. Let's see, payment method. We'll put the PayPal, and then we'll write something. Write something to the Russians. Text drawing. So let's do this real quick. Wikipedia. Wait, no. We'll type in T-72. We'll go here. We're going to take this whole line of text. We're going to copy it and paste it into here. Now let's see what the text limit is here. The T-72 is a family of Soviet/Russian main battle tanks that entered production. And so it looks like we can only get about this much of a line of text onto a tank. We could, of course, send them an email and try and say, hey, could you throw in all of these names somewhere? But I don't know where they would be able to do that unless it was like on the engine bay or something. And I don't think they would all fit on the barrel. And so sadly, I hate to say this, Sweaty Chungus, but I'm not really sure if that would be possible. We could, of course, ask them and see, but it may be a little bit difficult. So with that, I hope that does answer the question. And I thank you once again for the support. And we will look into that, but once again, I don't want to put up hopes incredibly high. It might not happen. And so with that, we're on to the next question. And thank you once again for the support, Sweaty Chungus. And thank you for being a longtime channel supporter and a legend who's been here for an incredibly long time, helping to support this channel and enjoying these nightly streams. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And next up, we have a $10 super chat from Leaf Spring Army, who says, I voted for LSA on the tank.
Well, I thank you very much for the support, and I completely agree. I think that LSA would be the best thing to put on. But then we learned that we could put on both of them and kind of have our cake and eat it. So with that, thank you once again for the support. I'm glad you voted for Leaf Spring Army to be on the tank, because I think that would be cool if we can only pick one. And so with that, we are on to the next question. And thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for backing up a dream that we all just got tonight. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And next up, we have a super chat from William Arens, who puts in a $10 donation and says, the longer that this war goes on, do you see the allies of the USA and other countries that value their independence will see Putin as an unreconstructed Stalinist supported by China's Xi Mao?
I think we kind of see that already. They're not really supported exactly by Xi, kind of like as a modern version of Mao. They're not really directly supported like that because the Chinese and the Russians, while staying somewhat friendly, don't really like each other either. So I don't think that would ever happen, but they do see them kind of as, we kind of do see Putin as a modern day Stalin, really just a continuation of a Soviet dictator in fake democratic guise. And so, by and large, I would say that a lot of the U.S. and the Western countries already view him like that, but the part about the Chinese supporting him hasn't really coalesced yet. And so, in that regard, I would have to say they don't view him like that yet, mostly because that's not really the way it's happened so far. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment in a way, and I thank you so much once again for the support. Helps this channel keep on running, and I hope I was able to answer that question to the best of my abilities. And thank you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from William Allen, who says, I'm buying a baby bomb with howdy from Texas. Yeah! I will send in the video to you for a compilation video to include in the history of the Leaf Spring Army. I'm sure you need a capstone project.
And thank you once again for the support. I'm sorry, everyone, I'm going to have to turn down my volume a lot because I just went through terrible pain. It's still going on right now. But thank you so much for the support. I'm glad that you did put that on a bomblet. That's really cool to hear. And I hope that it does make its way to a Russian target very soon. And so with that, thank you very much for the support. I'm going to have to keep my comments very short because I am in a lot of pain right now. But I hope that does answer the question. And thank you once again for the support. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have an $8 super chat from John G, who says, back at it, Slava Ukraine. Keep up great work.
And thank you very much for the support. I'm glad that you do enjoy what we're doing here on this channel. I would sound a lot more energetic right now, but, of course, with what's going on, that's kind of a little tough. But thank you once again for the support, and I hope that does answer the question. I'm glad that you do enjoy these streams a whole load. And so with that, hope that does address the comment. Thank you once again for the support, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Junebug, the channel legend. We also have a $5 donation from Callie J, as well as a, where'd it go? $5 donation from Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin, and also a $2 donation from Dupper Bob, a $2 donation from Mark Pellet, a $2 donation from MZNSSNS, a $2 donation from Raquel8, and a $1 donation from Zach Jeffers, our Discord mod. So thank you very much to all of you for your support. They did not leave comments, but thank you very much nonetheless for keeping us running, keeping us in operation. And up next to our next super chat, we have a $5 donation from Ryan Chipovich, who says, this is for the LSA tank inscription. Keep up the good work, gentlemen, and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support, and also Slava Ukraini. It's of course wonderful to know that you do enjoy this stream and want it to keep running. And of course, we thank everyone so much for their support, because without y'all, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. Just to explain something a little bit better, because I saw some people asking, what pain are you talking about? I woke up today with the back pains from last night. I'm having a lot of issues lately, to say the least. But the back pains are still going on. The back pains died off, but for some reason, somewhere in the afternoon, I was talking, and while I was talking, there's this muscle, and you'll know it if you ever get this pain, but there's this muscle in like the left side of your neck that kind of helps with talking a little bit, and also with like I guess you could say voice fluctuations in tone. And that muscle today, at least that's what I think it is, whenever I talk a lot or really loud, which I've been doing for hours now on the stream, sometimes it does this thing where it hurts incredibly bad and it hurts to talk. So I'm actually hurting right now to talk a little bit. It's still throbbing and in pretty bad pain. But of course, there's no brakes on this train. We're just going to get through it and hope that nothing really bad comes from it. But because of that, I'm starting to keep a little bit of a lower tone and get a little bit more quiet and just get closer to the mic. So that way I don't make it hurt even worse. So I hope that kind of explains what's going on. And I see a lot of people saying stop the stream. We're not going to stop the stream. We're going to address everyone's super chats and also answer a whole bunch of live chats. I promise that every single night, and I want to make sure we do that. And so with that, I hope that kind of explains to everyone what's going on a little bit better. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a $5 super chat from Havlin Tuff, who says, put into the Sign My Rocket Fund, whoop whoop.
Well, thank you very much for the support, Hyvelin, and we are definitely going to make sure to put that towards the funding the name on a rocket fund. We're going to put that on a 155mm shell. Probably tomorrow. We'll see about how to get that done on stream so that way y'all can watch that happening. And then we'll also be doing that on a tank as well. Hopefully, if we can get enough funds raised for that. We'll be putting a decent amount into that, but we'll also need the help from the Lee Spring Army to get that one done. So with that, I hope that does answer the question. And I thank you all once again for the support, and especially you, Hyvelin, for being around so long and being a dedicated member of this Lee Spring Army. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address the question. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Derek Smith, who says, start an LSA tank battalion.
And I would say that's a pretty cool idea. I don't know if we'd be able to have enough funds to do something like that. An entire battalion of tanks, it would probably cost like $30,000, well, more than that, like $300,000. But still, I think that would be pretty cool. And if we were able to do something like that, that would be really impressive. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. Pretty cool idea. We may look into getting at least one tank out there with the Lee Spring Army on it. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question. And I thank you once again so much for the support and so much for enjoying these streams and helping us to keep them going. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And next up, we have a $5 super chat from Coder for Liberty, who says, there is a YouTuber posting intercepted calls from Russian soldiers. They paint a bleak picture of their condition. Have you seen any of the videos?
Sadly, I don't really get a lot of time to wander around YouTube and look at all sorts of stuff. So unfortunately, I haven't seen a lot of those videos, but every once in a while I do stumble upon one, and usually it's showing a pretty bad scene from the Russian side. And by and large, usually the Russians that are talking in these videos look to be in pretty decent health and condition. And so I would assume that they're not being coerced into saying this stuff. It's actually what they're thinking and what they've experienced. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question. And I thank you once again for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Ole Wolanski, who says, if the genocide bill in the USA is passed, what would it mean for the USA's orientation toward the war? And I actually haven't heard of the genocide bill personally.
That's a pretty interesting question. If you're talking about the bill to make Russia a state sponsor of terrorism, it's not really going to change a lot. It's just going to be an official stance that the United States takes, and we're going to label them as a state sponsor of terrorism. But by and large, our support for Ukraine and our outlook on Russia would largely be the same as it is right now. There's not really a lot we can do extra rather than what we're already doing. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, at least in my opinion. And with that, thank you once again so much for the support. It helps this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And next up, we have a super chat from Steve2848, who puts in a whopper, a $300 donation to the channel, and says, lesson learned. After you sign an agreement and shake hands with the Russians, first, count your fingers. Then, check for any gold fillings you may have had. And finally, try and get your pen back.
And thank you so much for the massive support, Steve. I would be flipping out right now, but if I did, my muscle in my neck would also flip out, and I would be in searing pain. Just know that we are, of course, incredibly ecstatic to have you supporting our channel and helping us to keep this thing running, because that is, of course, massive support, and I thank you so much. Matthew, could you add the inflectuation in my voice right there for that? Make it show that we're appreciative.
Yes, and thank you very much for the support to the channel. We appreciate it very much. It helps us keep the lights on and keeps us running, and we appreciate you very much. Wow. And with that being said, we are moving on to the next question. Matt, what do you have?
Oh man, Matthew, you did that perfect. Thank you so much once again for the support, Steve. It's huge. And I'm actually going to take a risk here. I don't know if I'm going to go into a lot of pain, but I'm actually going to reflect what I'm actually feeling. Thank you so much for the support, Steve. It helps us out a great deal. Hopefully this isn't going to bust my neck. It feels like it is. But thank you once again. And it's a huge help. It helps us keep on running. And of course, you've been around for an incredibly long time and helping us to run these streams. And I got to thank you from the bottom of both of our hearts for helping us to keep this thing going. Now to address the comment and to get back down so that way my neck isn't going to burst. It almost did. I would have to agree that whenever you sign an agreement with the Russians, you ought to check off those 3 criteria right there. Check the gold fillings. You really got a high expectation for the Russians. I actually saw a joke today. I was wandering around on the internet, and I saw a person from Hungary. No, I'm sorry. I think it was a Bulgarian. They made a meme and said, imagine if all the Slavs just like took a trip out of like the Balkans and the Slavic countries for like 3 days, we could steal every car in Germany. And it's kind of falling along the same line of reasoning that you're going with there with the Russians. And I thought that was a funny joke from a Bulgarian, specifically considering that they're a Slav, and I thought that was a funny joke. So with that, thank you so much once again for the support and the pretty good joke there. And I'd have to agree, whenever you make an agreement with the Russians, you need to pretty much count on it's not going to be adhered to, much like they've done the green corridors throughout the entirety of the war, where civilians were supposed to be evacuated, and then they would start firing on the green corridors. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question. And thank you once again for the support, Steve, because without viewers like you, the massive support, our stream wouldn't be able to keep going. So thank you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, I want to recognize a $10 super chat from Robert McIver, who does not leave a comment, but thank you very much, Robert, for your continued support of the channel. And moving on to the next one, we have a $5 super chat from Pete Hone, who says, I vote for from the LFA with love. And Pete, I'm not sure if you meant to write LSA, because LFA is a really cool Lexus that they used to make, but they discontinued it a while back. So surely you're not talking about that. Really cool car, but I'm pretty sure you meant to say LSA.
And I think he did, but I think that would be a pretty good idea to put LSA with love on a shell. I think we would spell it out, though, so that way the full glory of the Leaf Spring Army could be bared against the Russians. The Leaf Spring Army. And so with that, thank you all once again for the support and enjoying being a member of the Leaf Spring Army, and I hope that does address the comment. And thank you once again for the support. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, Santiago Flores puts in a $5 donation and says, Enforcer, this is for the LSA T-72 Tank Fund.
And thank you so much for the support, and we are going to definitely see about having that put onto the side of a tank. The Enforcer YouTube Leaf Spring Army. And so with that, thank you once again so much for the support. I hope that does answer the question. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for being a longtime channel viewer, Santiago, and for helping these streams to keep on running. And so with that, on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Banana Boat 30 Plus, who says, for the tank. Also, I saw some rumors that the XM250 LSW have been sent to Ukraine for combat testing. Do you think the U.S. could be using Ukraine as a live test bed for future weaponry?
I haven't heard about the XM250, which is a new rifle that's supposed to be implemented into the U.S. arsenal soon. Honestly, I won't make any comments. It's the future. It is what it is. But anyways, to address this a little bit, I haven't heard about that, but we may be using it as a test bed to trial out some of our newer weapons like this and see if they actually stand up against the Russians or not. In fact, we could be doing that with everything we're sending over. We could be trying to see if the HIMARS are actually as effective as we believe in an actual conventional war. We could be testing out the Javelins to see how they actually measure up against some of Russia's best and most modern tanks that they field in mass. We could be doing this for everything, and so I wouldn't put that out of the picture for this XM250 as well. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and the interesting question. That was a very good question, but we don't know if the XM250s are over there right now as we speak. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope we have answered that question to the best of our abilities, at least as far as we're able to collect the information. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And next up, we have a $5 super chat from Gus M, who says, who's going to write an LSA theme song and lyrics?
You know, that's actually a pretty good question, and I've been thinking about in the background running a contest for that. We're trying. I've always been trying to figure out the logistics of how we will work it, but trying to run some kind of contest to make a flag for the Lee Spring Army as well as an anthem. We would most likely lay out some kind of criteria for what the flag and the anthem would look and sound like, but that is something interesting that I was thinking about reaching out to everyone and seeing if it was possible. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does answer the question, and that is something that's been in the back of my mind, and now that you brought it up, I guess I'll just bring it out to everyone and kind of say we have been thinking about that. And so with that, we're on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
And on to the next one. We have a $5 super chat from Christian Campbell, who says, should Ukraine encircle Kherson and let the soldiers cross at the dam, or encircle the dam and take roughly 15,000 troops, or at once?
I don't really like to weigh in on Ukrainian battle plans all too much and what they should do, because that could be giving away things that they may do and could lead to soldiers getting killed. And so I thank you very much for the support, but unfortunately I won't be able to answer that comment, because if I got it right, like we've done with the Russians many times earlier on in the war, and for some reason a Russian official was watching or listening in, we could be giving away something that they may think is not a possibility if they, respect my commentary or something like that. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address kind of the reason why we're not going to answer it is due to safety reasons for the Ukrainians. And so with that, we're going to move on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support. And with that, on to the next one.
And on to the next one, we have a $5 super chat from Ananas Pizza, who says, for the tank fund, puts the sort of suggestive face, a picture of a leaf, and a helmet.
I thank you very much for the support, Ananas Pizza, and we're going to make sure to try and get that tank fund rolling soon and make sure to get it into reality, and hopefully with y'all's help as well. And so with that, thank you all so much for the support, also to the tank fund and also to this channel, because it helps us to keep running, and hopefully we'll be able to do something incredibly cool here soon. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And before we move on, Matthew, I have to ask, how many super chats do we have left?
So let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, just 4 left.
All right, and so with that, I'm just going to let y'all know in advance, my throat, I don't know how much longer it can last. Well, my neck in general, just a holding. I don't know how much longer it can last talking. So we're going to answer these remaining super chats and 3 live chats tonight, and then we're going to be rounding out the stream. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Mike D, who says, as important as this is, please put your health first, or number 1. No one will fault you for taking a couple extra days off. You're no good to anyone, hurting more.
Well, thank you very much for the support. It seems like there's a decent amount of contention, though, in the chat as to whether I can have days off or not. Usually, I say there's no breaks on this train, and this kind of problem right here with the muscle in my neck, hopefully it'll just go away by tomorrow with a little bit of rest. But I do thank you so much for the support and caring for my health. But of course, silly me, we've got a war to cover, and I'm going to make sure to try and cover it as much as we can every single day of the week, except for Mondays. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, and thank you so much for your sympathies. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from CA Lags, who says, look up Precision Guidance Kit Artillery Fuse.
Precision Guided Kit Artillery Fuse?
Yes.
The M1156 Precision Guidance Kit, formerly XM1156, is a U.S. Army designed guidance system to turn existing 155 artillery shells into smart shells. And so it appears to be an additional, it's an addition to the already pre-existing shell to turn the conventional shells into smart shells, which is kind of interesting, actually. And this kind of falls into the criteria of a... let me think, what was that thing called? It was the gun after the war, the Civil War that we had here in the U.S. It was a trapdoor. The Springfield trapdoor. It kind of sounds like we're doing that to the 155 millimeter shells. And so with that, thank you so much for the support and bringing that to our attention. I didn't know that, and that may be why a lot of the 155 millimeter shells we're sending over are able to be so accurate, as maybe they're being, they have those additions on them. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, and I thank you once again for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Michael Cabrera once again, who says, I love the videos when Ukrainian military punishes the beast from the east.
Well, thank you so much for the support, and I do think it's pretty nice to see the Ukrainians always whipping the Russians on film. We do see the Ukrainians taking casualties here and there on film, but still, the overall picture is that the Russians are getting obliterated, and there's no way that you can explain that they're not being obliterated, because if they were having a cakewalk, then how come they haven't taken over the country yet? And that kind of shows that they're getting obliterated. So with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does answer the question, and with that, we're on to the next one, and thank you so much for the support.
And up next, Mr. Lunchtime donates $2 of his lunch money and says, inscription on the tank, Mr. Lunchtime forever.
That's a pretty funny idea. I would like it, though, to be a credit to the Lee Spring Army. Mr. Lunchtime is an interesting idea, but I do like the idea of crediting the entire Lee Spring Army, which the existence of this channel, the fundraisers, and everything owes its credit to on the tank. So with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And next up, to the final super chat of the night, we have a $2 donation from Banana Boat 30 Plus once more, who says, I also forgot to say the Su-25 is the Russian version of the A-10 and is commonly used so that the A-10 will likely see a lot of action.
And thank you so much for the support. And yes, the Su-25 is a lot like the A-10, but there are some large differences in between the two. Although a lot of people say they're slow, a lot of people don't get the idea of how different slow is these days for military aircraft. The Su-25, just to pull it up, has a cruising speed of around 590 miles per hour. The A-10, on the other hand, has a cruising speed, let's get rid of that, A-10. The A-10 has a cruising speed of 348 miles per hour, and so you're seeing like a 150 mile per hour speed difference in between this Su-25. Well, really, it's almost a 200 mile per hour speed difference in between the quote-unquote slow Su-25 and the quote-unquote slow A-10. The A-10 is far slower than the Su-25. Also, the Su-25 cannot carry as much munitions, I believe, off the top of my head, as the A-10, so it does fall short in that category. But yes, they are somewhat similar in role. They are close support aircraft, but there are enough differences that the Su-25 can perform differently than the A-10 in the exact same situations. But by and large, I would say that the A-10 is a better aircraft. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, and I thank you so much for the support. And with that in mind, I would say, yeah, maybe the A-10 would have a place in Ukraine, but then again, who knows? We would only be able to see by going over there and then seeing how effective it would be. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, and I hope that does answer the question. And with that, we're now going to move on to three live chats from the night, and then after that, we're going to round out tonight's stream. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up to the first live chat question, we have one from Goshawk Nova, who says, why would the Russians go to all the trouble to sign an agreement and then just hours later break the deal? You still there, Enforcer? Uh-oh. Enforcer, can you hear me? Enforcer, can you hear me? I think I'm seeing your desktop audio thing jump around when I talk, but I can't hear you. Can you hear me at all, Enforcer? I still see the desktop audio thing jumping around, but I can't hear you. I'm seeing people from the chat say they have no sound.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
For some reason, my microphone muted itself on its own, which was kind of weird. But anyways, now that we've got that fixed, on to that question again, if we could have it read off.
All right. And back to the question from Goshawk Nova?
Yes.
Okay, so that question was, and everybody, if you can hear us, please put it in the live chat. It looks like they can. But anyways, Goshawk Nova said, why would the Russians go through all the trouble to sign an agreement and then hours later break the deal?
The reason why is most likely for international clout. They were most likely trying to make it look like they actually care for the world and then destroy the port facilities to ensure that the Ukrainians would have an incredibly hard time trying to deliver that grain worldwide, and then they could blame the famine on the Ukrainians instead of them by saying, hey, look, we did everything we could. It was all up to y'all to get the grain out, and y'all couldn't because y'all are y'all suck, y'all are inferior, and that's why we ought to invade and take y'all over. That may have been what the Russians are trying to do, but it was largely see-through. On top of that, they may have just decided that they didn't really like the deal after agreeing on it, or that their diplomats in Istanbul didn't really represent the wishes of the Russian government, and so then they just started to bombard the ports again. And so with that, I hope that does answer your question, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Richie MC, who says, who were the 2 Americans killed in Ukraine as of recent?
Unfortunately, I couldn't tell you their names. I haven't actually heard of 2 Americans killed in Ukraine. I wouldn't doubt it. There's a lot of American volunteers over there, and of course, with a lot of American volunteers, there would run the risk of Americans being killed. Unfortunately, I don't know who they are, and so I'm going to have to plead ignorance on that one because I won't be able to answer that question with a strong conscience because I really don't know the answer. And so with that, we're going to move on to the final question of the night. So who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
All right, and the lucky viewer of the night is Gabby B, and this will be the final question of the night before the enforcer can go get an icy hot patch. So, the last question we have the one from Gabby B, who says, do you think with Putler constantly breaking agreements, he is trying to provoke World War III?
I don't think he's trying to deliberately provoke World War III because that would be a losing war for the Russians, and they know it as well. I think that they deliberately broke the agreement because, one, they didn't find it favorable. Maybe the diplomats were not representing them and the Russian government's interests in Istanbul when they made that agreement. They may have also, once again, been trying to make it impossible for the Ukrainians to ship enough grain worldwide and then try and blame it on them by saying that we allowed the grains to be shipped, it was y'all's responsibility, and y'all failed to carry it through. Or it could just be that the Russians don't have anything coordinated, and while they made that agreement, these missile attacks had already been pre-planned. These Navy commanders never got any information about it, and then they just started launching these missile attacks on the ports anyways. It could be a multitude of things. There's really no way to know what the actual motive behind those attacks were, but one can say that they're definitely heinous considering that an agreement had been made that those ports wouldn't be attacked, and then hours later, missiles began flying into them. And so with that, I hope that kind of has answered your question to the best of my abilities, in my opinion. And with that, we have now reached the end of this night's stream. I thank you all so much for watching. It's been day 150, which has been a big day. And of course, I thank you all so much for bearing with me and my neck doing whatever it's doing. The unbearable pain that it's gone through a little bit is kind of subsided, probably because I'm talking very quietly. But thank you all once again for watching. It's been an absolute honor for me to cover the news to all of y'all, and I hope that we are able to figure out something with putting the Leaf Spring Army on a tank in Ukraine. So with that, thank you all once again. It's been an absolute pleasure. And if you are new to the stream, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We run these streams every single day of the week, except for Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine. And we also upload daily summaries showing the highlights of what's happened in the war. So with that, thank you all once again, and I will see you all tomorrow on the Sunday Night Fundraiser at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to support Doctors Without Borders. Thank you all, and I'll see you then. Good night, and take care.